This is one of the great British sporting traditions. Two ancient universities going head-to-head on a mighty river in an iconic city. Welcome to London. Welcome to the Thames. Welcome to the boat races.
6 months of training and hard work.
Both using every bit of lung power that they have.
Send it together. Now they're starting to make it count. Backs breaking, legs dying, gulping in that air.
Now it's down to real guts and determination.
For Cambridge, it's all about celebration.
Oxford are the winners.
The Thames. Oxford. Cambridge. Two races. Only one possible outcome.
We have ignition.
Binary, a number system composed only of ones and zeros. This ancient, simple code is central to modern life. It is adaptable and evolving, keeping pace with the changing times.
Oxford University Women's Boat Club have won this historic race.
But whatever the era, there are only two options.
0.
1. Friend, enemy.
Win. Lose.
These ones and zeros can encode vast amounts of data,
Squeezing it on.
plotting improvement and revealing the bigger picture.
Life.
Death.
It is only when the values are aligned in the correct order that the system can be fully understood.
A dark blue, clean sweep.
Binary. Only two values.
Win.
Lose.
Which crew will be the one? Which crew will be the zero?
It is brutal in its simplicity. You are either a hero or you leave with absolutely zero. This is the Oxford women arriving earlier this afternoon. The boat races, by the way, this year run in honour of Cancer Research UK. Maddie Babcock there, the president of Oxford. Actually, the minibus was being driven by the woman who was president last year, Anastasia Chitty, who will be a key part of that crew. And for Cambridge, well, they come here trying to turn the tide. Oxford have been utterly dominant in recent women's boat races, but as we know, this is only the second to be raced on the Tideway. Very different challenge ahead. Hannah Roberts is their president. Alice Jackson going through there. Their average age is 24 and their average weight 11 stone 11. For the men, well, Oxford again coming here off the back of 3 wins in a row. They are on a roll. They've won 11 of 16 races since the turn of the century, 6 of the last 8. Their president is Morgan Gerlach, and Sam Collier is the cox who will guide them through. Jamie Cook going through there. Cambridge, though, do have the benefit of more boat race experience. They have 4 returning blues. Their president is Henry Hofstadt, and they are utterly committed to the concept of winning. Ian Middleton, their cox, is coxing his 3rd race in a row. Luke Juckett coming through with the headphones on, listening to stirring music. And they are a very strong crew. Their form has looked good as well. And they are determined to make sure that today is a winning day. Well, it's beautiful sunshine right now, but let me tell you, we have had 4 seasons in a day already, because just 20 minutes or so ago we had heavy rain, we had hailstones before that, and this is just after the presentation platform. The shots here of fork lightning coming down and actually hitting a tree there that caught fire. And luckily we understand that the presentation platform in that area not damaged, but it now feels balmy, it feels lovely, but the water conditions will be difficult. Anything could happen. This is just earlier on for spectators. It has not been an enjoyable afternoon so far, but we are promised that it will continue to brighten and we should get the better conditions still ahead. But it means that as far as the race is concerned, it is going to be choppy out there, but these are live conditions. You can see the crowd starting to gather on the banks of the Thames. For the third time this century, the boat race, and the boat race is taking place on Easter Day. So happy Easter to everybody, and let's welcome the first of our many expert guests, George Nash and Constantine Louloudis, with me. Between them, they've rowed in 7 boat races, now both part of Team GB. And George, this course, this test, it is utterly different to anything you would experience elsewhere in rowing.
You're absolutely right, Claire. I mean, most rowing at this level is on a 2K lake, 2 kilometres long. It's nice and flat. You're usually separated from your opposition by a line of lane buoys. The boat race, by contrast, is over 3 times the length. You have to row it on a river which is incredibly turbulent. You just mentioned the wind, which today is going to be apocalyptically bad. You're not separated from your opposition, and you're coming in blind, so you know nothing about your opposition before you actually start the race. So there's loads of uncertainty, loads of nerves, and it's just all together. They're just all together a lot more sort of random factors at play. And
added to all of that, Constantine, they are full-time students as well, so they are not full-time athletes.
Yeah, it's an incredibly demanding lifestyle. George and I are full-time athletes now, and I think we both agree the lifestyle of a full-time athlete, by contrast, is relaxed, sedate. You've got time after you finish training. As a student athlete, you get days where you just don't get a minute off in a whole day. You've got deadlines, you've got tutorials, you've got training, mentally and physically extremely draining.
I mentioned just as the crews were arriving that Cambridge have been in pretty good form recently. So, George, are you hopeful that this could be the year for the light blues? You've got your scarf on, you're showing your side.
I've nailed my colours to the mast early with this massive scarf. Yeah, I think Cambridge have shown great form this season, and I've got everything crossed for them today. I think they're coming in pretty hot favourites, I would say.
Oh.
Constantine, you are disagreeing with the word hot, I think.
Well, I think I'd say for that Oxford crew, they're a real bunch of scrappers. They're going to get out there and actually take on the mantle of being underdogs, which Oxford haven't had for a while. And if you style it right, you get the kind of momentum going with you. When you're level, going to toe with a crew that's favourites against you, the momentum is with you. And I'd also say, okay, they've only got 1 returning blue in there, but fully 5 of that crew have experience winning in a very strong reserve crew. And they've really come up through the ranks. They've all improved individually. I don't think this is a write-off at all, and I'm certainly backing Oxford.
Well, the men's race is due off at 4:10. The women's race, though, at 3:10. They're already out on the water. Kath Bishop is over here with Nadine Gradel-Iberg. And Nadine, you were part of that Oxford crew that won the first ever race on the Tideway last year. So for you being back here, what are your thoughts?
Yes, it's incredibly emotional for me to be back. It was really hard to take it all in last year, but I remember sitting on the start line and thinking of all the generations of Oxford and Cambridge women who had really built to make this change happen, and finally being there. That was very emotional.
And you're actually still at Oxford, aren't you, studying?
Yes, I am in my last year of my PhD.
So why are you not in the boat this year?
Yeah, training for the boat race is a huge time commitment, requires a lot of dedication, and all of the women that are in the boat now are balancing this with their very demanding studies. And for me this year, I had a lot of projects to finish. I really wanted to focus on my research.
Well, it's lovely to have you here as part of our team. And Kath Bishop, who was part of a winning boat race crew for Cambridge back in the 90s, but you've won World Championship and Olympic medals as well. The guys were talking about the difference of this challenge. And for the women, it is a challenge they haven't had that long to get used to.
You're right, it's a new tradition we're building in a way. So we can't go back and ask boat race crews from my era what was it like to run the Tideway. So there are some things that are different. Obviously we learn and we talk to the men's clubs. On the other hand, we've all raced a boat race, and there's something about the intensity of that rivalry and the experience of juggling, rowing and the studying at the same time that is the same. So, yes, the tide and the difference course has changed, but in many ways there are things that it's about racing Oxford and bringing your best.
There is nothing else like it. It is a sporting event that is utterly unique, and this is what we've got coming up as we build up to the 2 big races today. Dark blue has been the dominant force in the last decade, but every dynasty must come to an end. Is their reign on the wane?
Nothing ever lasts forever. It's a rowing race. It doesn't matter what the history is around it, deal with what's in front of you.
Last year, Oxford created history, the first women ever to win the boat race on the Tideway. What seemed impossible is now a matter of course.
You just make sure you control the nerves and excitement, because it's such a huge occasion that you don't want it to overwhelm you.
Lacrosse, korfball, trampolining. If it's light blue versus dark blue, we've got the varsity victories covered.
It's so much bigger than you that everyone just kind of gets caught up in the narrative that's been going for hundreds of years.
Choppy waters, swirling winds. We've got tricky conditions on Easter Day, and it could get worse before the men's race at 4:10. But for those people who are considering coming out to the banks of the Thames to have a look, the news is right now that it is warm and sunny, so get on out there. You should get a good spot as well to enjoy both the women's race and indeed the Cancer Research UK boat race, which is due off at 4:10, as I mentioned there. It is a huge social occasion. Around 250,000 people are due to be part of this crowd, and in amongst them, I think checking out the pubs, is Helen Skelton.
Yes, Claire, we're about 100 metres from the start line. The nerves are building out there. It's cliche, but it's fact to say the atmosphere is building in here. This is the pub closest to where it all kicks off. They've got extra staff, they've got extra supplies, because I'm not the only one who thinks this is an occasion to be celebrated. For a lot of Londoners, this is an annual event. They make an afternoon of it. 250,000 people will line the banks of the Thames today. That's about 3 times the number of people who turn up to Wembley on FA Cup final day. Among them, myself and comedian Sean Walsh. Good to see you, Sean.
Good to see you. Why haven't I got a mic?
Your reliability, that's why.
Fair enough. That is fine.
What is your experience of the boat race so far?
So far, no, I know nothing about this. I thought it was in Cambridge. I have no idea. So I'm happy to be here. I think there's been a booking error, basically. I reckon right now Stephen Fry is going to Stoke to do a uni gig.
Well, I haven't got Stephen Fry. I've got you with me all afternoon. That may well be a good thing. I think it's going to be a brilliant thing.
What are we doing?
We are exploring the social side of the boat race.
Ooh.
You live a stone's throw from here.
Yeah.
Yet you've never been here. By your own admission, you thought it was in Cambridge.
Yeah. I'm usually in bed. It's Sunday. Hello, mate. You all right? How's it going?
Everybody is enjoying themselves out and about on the banks of the river. Some people are really getting stuck into the atmosphere already.
Oh, my God. We need to get him involved. Is he part of the boat race? Is he Cambridge or Oxford?
He's part of the enviable atmosphere that we will be dipping in and out of all afternoon. Stay with us. Who knows what's going to happen? See you in a bit, Claire.
We look forward to the uncertainty of that, thanks to Helen and indeed to Sean. Well, the women's crews are out on the water continuing to warm up, but although this is a head-to-head, it is a duel between 2 incredibly physically fit crews. It is also a race against the course, and Wayne Pommen, who was the winning Cambridge president 12 years ago, is out there on the umpire's launch, so let's get an update from him on conditions.
Well, it's one of those boat race days we get every few years where the weather is a real factor. You can see the brooding skies behind me. It's very windy out here. We've had hail, we've had rain, we've already had lightning. And I've got the weather report in front of me here. Wind of 40 to 50 kilometers an hour from the southwest. So what does that mean? It means halfway through the course after Hammersmith Bridge, it's going to be a big headwind. It's going to be very rough. And the crew that handles it the best is going to win the race. And it may, if it gets even rougher than this, it could even be sinking conditions with the crews taking on water. It's very entertaining to watch, but it's no fun for the crews, so we don't want to see that today.
There have been some awful conditions for boat races, and 6 sinkings in total, and the most recent of those in 1978. Although actually back in 1984, Cambridge struck a barge before the start, damaged the boat, and it all had to be started again. The race postponed until the following day. Now, as and when they make it to the finish, Jason Mohammed will be there waiting for them.
Thank you very much indeed. A very good afternoon to you. I'm in place at Mortlake, where I shall be interviewing the winners and the losers as they complete over 4 miles of exhausting, back-breaking effort. Now, this course isn't just long, it's also open to the elements. Therefore, conditions can change dramatically. So tactics and strategy are just as important as sheer brute force and endurance. So Matt Pinsent won this race twice with Oxford. This is his guide to the River of Pain.
4 miles, around 17 minutes of pain. It all begins at Putney Bridge. The crew on the left is racing on the Surrey side, the crew on the right, Middlesex. 3.5 minutes into the race, they'll arrive at the first mile marker, then onwards towards Harrods Depository. Hammersmith Bridge is often a decisive part of the race. The Coxes will aim for the second lamppost on the left, and the majority of the crews leading here go on to win. The next bend gives the crew on the Surrey side a huge advantage past Chiswick, where conditions can often be rough and windy. Then it's under the central arts of Barnes Bridge before heading onwards towards the finish just before Chiswick Bridge.
That is the challenge that awaits them, but there is no glamour in rowing. You carry your own boat down to the water. And the Cambridge crew have 3 returning blues: Ashton Brown in the bow seat, Daphne Marchenko in 5, and their cox, Rosemary Ostfeld. They also have the experience of Myriam Goudet of France in the 6th seat, who has rowed at World Rowing Under-23 Championships and European Championships. As for Oxford, they have a boat packed full of talent. They have core strength and the experience of their former winners, Anastasia Chitty, who was president last year, Maddie Badcock, who is this year's president, and Lauren Kedar. And their average age is 23. And they are very, very strong. Well, Zoe de Toledo knows them well. She has coxed here in the men's boat race, but also you know that the comparisons between these two crews. And would you make Oxford strong favourites for the women's race?
For me, Oxford are undoubtedly the strong favourites here. They've got experience from previous boat race winners, and they've got experienced girls coming into the boat, as well as a cox who is very talented. I think Cambridge are going to be a good crew, but I can't see how they'll get past Oxford.
Can conditions make it more level, though?
Conditions certainly can level it out. The stations might come into play depending on if you get worse on one side than the other. It's hard to say until you get out there and into the race. The better crew should handle the conditions better, but one crew might be better practiced, might have a slightly bigger boat, so they're sitting a little bit higher out the water. There's plenty of reasons why they might handle the conditions better.
Kath, Oxford were very impressive last year. What do Cambridge need to do to try and catch up?
Right, they had an outstanding crew last year, and there are a whole lot of factors, I guess, that go into making a boat go fast in the boat race. And facilities is one, good coaching is one, having the right athletes, having a system, having belief in that system. There are sort of a range of different factors, and you try and build those year on year. It's quite difficult to make big leaps in those things, but again, if you are losing, you have to try and be more bold about what you might be able to do to make a difference. But some of those things don't change quickly.
And Nadine, standing here looking out at the river, is there part of you that wishes you were in the Oxford boat?
I mean, on a day like this, who wouldn't want to row?
I wish I was out there.
I'm thinking on a day like this, it looks pretty tricky, actually.
No, so the conditions are definitely very tricky. It's a big challenge, and this is why we train in all kinds of conditions. We go out no matter if it's raining and no matter what the wind does. So we try to be prepared for all these situations.
Well, over recent years, Oxford have most definitely had the upper hand, but over its complete history in both the men's and women's boat races, Cambridge are actually the more successful. So how do these waves of domination come about? Can they be broken? Matthew Pinsent reports.
Like the waters of the tidal Thames, the fortunes of the boat race come and go. When the tide's in, morale is sky high. But conversely, when it's down low, it's a long way back. There's a history of winning runs in the boat race. In a period of success, it's almost as if the other team can get nowhere near you. And at this moment, it's the turn of Oxford.
This has been a dark blue, clean sweep.
Sean Bowden's men have won 7 of the last 10 on this river. He's created a dynasty, and under Christine Wilson, the women look to be starting their own.
Moving to London has completely changed the game for both Oxford and Cambridge women. I mean, Oxford have only won one race here, but you get the impression they're on a roll, and therefore Cambridge need to really come back.
The Dark Blues haven't always had it their own way. In the 1920s, Cambridge's men won 13 in a row, and the women did the same at Henley in the 1960s. In the modern era, it was Oxford's turn again, the late Dan Topolsky leading them to 10 years of unparalleled success.
It builds up. It can depress a squad, but it can also be a stimulus if somebody comes along like Dan does and says, we've got to stop this. That can be really motivating.
So what are the ingredients you need to build an empire, to create a winning mentality?
Attention!
Once you start on a run of success, you keep being successful. So we had a coach who had an effective programme. He knew how to win, and people were attracted to it.
You began to believe that as long as you went with the system, then you were going to win.
The question is, how do you turn it around? How can you bring about the end of a dynasty?
I think it is that fundamental self-belief that, right, this is our year, we're the ones that can do it. And then you have to find your own method. Are your 2,000 strokes just that millimetre better than the opposition?
But everything has to come to an end, doesn't it?
Nothing ever lasts forever. It's a rowing race. It doesn't matter what the history is around it, deal with what's in front of you, because that's the bit that you can deal with.
And if we have a look at recent results, you can see here Oxford's dominance. In fact, they've won 8 out of the last 11, and the Oxford women have won 11 out of 14. And the Oxford success rate for the men coincides with the period of Sean Bowden as coach. He took over in 1998. Constantine, you rode under him, you know how he works. What makes him so successful?
Yeah, Sean, he's one of the most accomplished, thoughtful, innovative coaches in the sport, I think. He brings a real focus to everything he does. You can tell when you first meet him, he's quite intimidating actually. He can come across quite cold, but he's just incredibly analytical, brings an intense focus to everything he does. Isn't going to follow the crowd at all. He makes his own decisions. He's a bit of a pioneer within the sport, I think, and that's made OUBC a club that I think other people within the sport want to try and emulate.
And he comes, obviously, he's a coach through and through. Steve Trapmore, George, came to Cambridge as a man with a very big reputation as a rower himself. He was the stroke of the 8 that won gold at the Sydney Olympics for Team GB. What is he like as a coach?
Steve, similarly, is very meticulous, similarly quite analytical. He's a bit more personable, probably, than Sean. But incredibly passionate, works incredibly hard. He's always the first guy down to the shed and he's always the last guy to leave. He puts in regular sort of 13, 14-hour days down there, and that passion sort of rubs off on the guys. He's always kind of keen on the technical aspects of the sport. He was famed for being a very particular rower in how he moved and how he rode, and he's very keen to instill that kind of passion for technique into the guys. This is
his 6th boat race in charge. He has the 1 win so far. Zoe, at Oxford, do you get the feeling there that the system is trusted because the system has proved so successful? Is it about process more than personality?
I think it's a different race, as George talked about earlier. It's a very different race to your usual international racing. And actually, you do need to understand the race, you need to understand the river, you need to understand the tactics. And if you have a coach like Sean Bowden, for example, who has won year after year, not only does he clearly understand that, but his athletes trust it and buy into it straight away.
When we look at the women's cruise, Kath, going back to the 90s, Cambridge were absolutely dominant. What did they have then that Oxford didn't have?
I think, again, they had a really strong coaching team. We had legendary Ron and Roger, these 2 amazing coaches who turned many of us into Olympians, which was quite an incredible period. We had a lot of that talent coming through, and I guess it's about getting that belief that we can get to those levels again. It's certainly, we've tried to do some different things. I think the coaches have looked at bringing in guest coaches, bringing in some freshness, bringing in some new inspiration to try and keep lifting things and get that edge. But it also comes down to the talent you have at the beginning of the season. There's really only a short period, September to March, to mould these athletes, and some of them are incredibly new to the sport. It's a lot we've got to do in a short period of time.
Well, talking of coaches, this is where Oxford very much had the upper hand, because 4 years ago they recruited a woman with Olympic experience. Christine Wilson is Canadian, but she'd worked with the US team at the Olympics. She'd also coached men at Yale and Cornell universities, and she has a holistic approach to her crew, to her students. She believes in developing their personalities as well as their talent, but she does expect the best of them.
To be able to work with somebody who is that talented in a high-performance environment is incredible.
She knows more about how I work than I do.
There is an underlying desire to really gain her respect.
Okay, so we're going to just organize you into 2 groups. One group will start in the tanks, one group will start on the station circuit, then there'll be a bit of a swap, okay?
The building of every team is a little bit of a mysterious process. They don't have to be best friends, but they do have to trust each other. And finding those dynamics isn't ever a straight line approach.
You said your job is to worry. So do you have nights where you're lying in bed worrying about your number 6 or the dissertation they should have finished?
It's the coach's job to do the worrying behind the scenes, so I do have some sleepless nights.
Let's get a few more reps done in each interval.
I have never met a coach who can look at a boat and look at a rower and immediately assess how they can improve and what they can do to get better.
It's way more compact and it's way more connected to the foot stretcher and the hull.
We very much would like to think we're in control, but at the end of the day, it's really up to them.
As it gets closer to race day, what do you say to them to stop them obsessing about it? Because most of us would.
We stay very much focused on the process, you know, that we're always trying to elevate the standard of these women. It's almost like the polishing of rough diamonds.
She's taking the time to invest in you. There's always that desire to hear that comment where she says, that's the right idea.
At different times, these women, they do need some bolstering, you know, because what they're doing is just flat out impressive. I'm not sure I could do it. I'm pretty excited about what this crew can do when they're at their best. Their performance on the day is their message to the world. If they're prepared and they show up when it matters, it's pretty fun to watch.
And they do look very strong in training, I have to say. But Catherine Granger alongside me, Olympic champion. You've been there, you've seen Christine in action as well. They've got a good setup, haven't they, Oxford?
Yeah, they do have a good setup, and they've got confidence. They've got confidence that the system works and the coaching works, and you know, the athletes just need to fit into that system and bring the best they can.
Now, how about you? We're all set for Rio. How are things? How are you?
We're not set yet. A few more months to go there, Claire, but it's all aiming towards Rio now. As soon as the clock ticked into 2016, that's everyone's focus, and it's the final countdown. So we're announcing our crews the next few weeks, and game on.
And presumably for some of those crews, it is still quite open.
Yeah, it is. We've done most of this the big selection dates have come and gone, and everyone's proved as much as they can. The coaches are now sort of fine-tuning the final seats in the boats that will be there in Rio. So it's not quite relaxed and comfortable yet. There's still more athletes than we need, so there will be cuts made, and that's the tough time for anyone in the squad. And then we'll just be straight through.
I think that it is fair to say, though, there is one certainty, and they are the hottest favourites for any of the British athletes going to Rio to win gold, and that's these two.
It's 2 in a row at the European Championships now. They are world champions again for Helen Glover and Heather Stanning. Great Britain are Olympic champions, and it couldn't go to two worthy women.
And Heather Stanning and Helen Glover are here today because they are going to be doing the honours with the presentation later. Let's head out to Jason, who I hope has got them with him.
Yes, Claire, thank you very much indeed. Yes, excitement mounting here at the finish line, and Heather and Helen are alongside me. You're actually out on the water this morning, not here. What was the conditions like for you?
And it was beautiful, it was sunny, the water was flat, but by the time we got off the water mid-morning, it was a different story, so I really hope it's okay for them.
The conditions are going to be crucial this afternoon, Heather.
Oh, absolutely, especially when you have to pick one side of the river or the other, and yeah, the Coxes will have a good job to do today.
You've got a really big job today, handing out the trophies. How honoured are you to be here, Helen?
We're really honoured because we know that this is going to be the peak and the highlight of all these rowers' season, all of their years. And I mean, I'm sure they might probably won't remember who hands them the trophy, but it's a big deal for us. It's really, really nice to be asked.
And feeling good for Rio, Heather?
Yeah, at the moment everything's going well. We're feeling strong. There's still a few months to go yet, so a bit more training to do, but everything's on track so far.
Well, good luck today and good luck for Rio. We look forward to seeing you out in Brazil. Thank you very much indeed, ladies. From Helen and Heather to Helen and Sean, where are you, Helen Skelton?
We are at the Blue Anchor pub, which is a bit of a pilgrimage for boat race goers.
I've never seen so many middle-class people in my life. It's crazy. It's like a Waitrose on Black Friday. Look at it. Look how many chinos there are. How many pastel colours.
And yet we are here. No,
Yes,
this, Sean, really is an event for everybody, especially now that the women's race happens on the same day, second year that has happened.
Ooh.
Lots of families tend to gather on the south side of the river to catch a glimpse of it. It's a historical event, Sean. It's part of the nation's rich tapestry.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do the women have a Cox?
They certainly do. The Cox is a very important role.
Okay.
We're talking about a boat that is the same length as a double-decker bus.
That is big.
They are steering using a rudder, which is the size of a credit card. Every time they use that
Smaller.
steer,
Yeah.
they are braking the boat. They've got to find the best line on the river. I've rowed and paddled a lot out there.
Yeah.
And do you know what? It's a moving, living, dramatic thing. A lot of pressure on all of these rowers, a lot at stake, including the lady who's hungry for success in the Cambridge number 5 seat, Daphne Marchenko.
Rowing means everything to me. I started rowing when I first got into secondary school, and I was never athletic before that, so it completely changed my life in terms of giving me the confidence to be able to do sport and excel at it. And so to come here and have hundreds of thousands of people watching you race is unparalleled to anything I had experienced before in my life.
It's not an easy sport. How difficult and how demanding is that schedule?
So we take a train 3 days a week, 5:55 train, to Ely, and we have a session that ends in time for us to get back for 9 a.m. lectures. And in the afternoons, we'll have an erg or a weight session. So we train 6 days a week, twice a day.
You guys train in the same way that professional full-time athletes do, but you're studying as well. How difficult is it?
You know, some days you'll feel like a superwoman because you're able to accomplish all you need to do in the academic sphere, and then you go and you know, crush it on an ergo session.
These are the closing stages of a painful race for Cambridge.
Do you feel like you've got a score to settle?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a lot of fire and a lot of drive this year. And the energy that has been on the squad this year has just been so incredible. We have 3 of us who are returning from the Blue Boat last year. It's definitely an advantage, especially since our coxswain, Rosemary Ostfeld, was the Blue Boat cox last year. Her coming back is a huge asset for us.
It sounds like you get a lot out of the sport, but when it comes to race day, how serious is the boat race to you?
It is the event that you spent all year training for, and it's always in the back of your mind that that is the goal that you're working towards. So, I mean, it is the boat race, and that's the only race that matters.
And Daphne is one of 3 returning Blues in the Cambridge boat. People getting a vantage point wherever they can. And it's at this point that we welcome viewers to BBC World News, and you join us live on the banks of the Thames, where the women's boat race is under 10 minutes away, and an hour later we'll see the men take to the water for the Cancer Research UK boat race. And the course twisting, turning, stretching ahead of them, 4 1/4 miles. And Kath Bishop and Zoe de Toledo and Catherine Granger are with me. And Kath, how often would any crew actually race 4 1/4 miles?
Actually, not very often. One of the key points is the Trial 8s races that happens in December, which is in a way a test of who's going to be in the crew. And then our crew raced, so the Cambridge crew raced in the women's 8's head, which is racing the same course but the other way round, but in a timed race, so a time trial. So it's not something you do, I guess, even in Olympic level, you wouldn't race 2K that often. You will train long distances doing endurance work, then you'll do sharper pieces that will build up until you're ready to do this.
Well, we will talk more in a moment about tactics, particularly with Zoe and the role of the cox as well. But let's first of all meet the 2 teams about to compete in the women's boat race.
First up, the coxes. For Oxford, Morgan Bainham-Williams is a debutant, but one with international experience.
We go out there and we race because we love racing.
American Rosemary Ostfeld returns to give orders to the Cambridge crew. And stroke, Lauren Kedar aims to make it a hat-trick of wins in dark blue, while Zara Guzzi takes part for the first time, having learned to row at Cambridge. At 7, the 2 presidents. Maddie Badcock is striving for her 2nd straight win with Oxford.
It's so black and white. You have to win in 2nd place. It's nothing.
Cambridge president Hannah Roberts steps up after 2 years of experience in the reserve boat.
You just make sure you control the nerves and excitement because it's such a huge occasion that you don't want it to overwhelm you.
At 6, hoping to make it 4 wins from 4 appearances, is last year's Oxford president Anastasia Chitty. For Cambridge, 27-year-old French international Myriam Goudet. In the Oxford 5 seat, Elo Luik becomes the first Estonian to earn a blue in either of the boat races.
you just want to beat Cambridge, but you also just want to find a new standard for yourself.
American Daphne Marchenko returns for Cambridge, hoping to make amends for last year's defeat. At 4, there's a first boat race for 20-year-old Ruth Sidorn. And there's a debut too in light blue for former dressage international Thea Zabel.
There is a really positive atmosphere. We can really win this year.
2 more first-timers at 3. Joanneke Jansen has represented the Netherlands at European level. Opposite her, UCL graduate Alice Jackson. At 2, and earning her first blue, Emma Spruce, while Fiona Macklin follows in the footsteps of her grandfather, who rowed for Cambridge in 1951.
He was such an inspiration. I feel unbelievably lucky to be able to sit in his seat and win for him this year.
And there is a Canadian flavour at bow. Harvard graduate Emma Lukasevich made the move to rowing from downhill skiing, while 27-year-old Ashton Brown has dual Australian-Canadian nationality. These are the crews of the 71st Women's Boat Race.
And those are the crews whose stomachs will be churning right now, and they will be trying to focus on the challenge ahead. Let's talk about the 2 Coxes. Morgan Bainham-Williams for Oxford, Rosemary Ostfeld for Cambridge. Zoe, how do they shape up?
Rosemary's, this is her 3rd race on the Tideway. She's coxed the women's blue boat before, and Goldie as well for the reserve men. But Morgan is an extremely experienced international cox, and I really think that she will put her crew in an excellent place today.
Given the conditions today, is it likely that they will have pumps on board on these boats?
I'm pretty sure they will have their pumps on board. You need a good amount of water before it's worth taking the weight of the pumps, but given the conditions that are predicted, I suspect most of the coaches will have opted to put those pumps in.
And Kath, does that add weight? Must do.
It adds a small amount of weight. It doesn't make a huge difference, and I think because of the conditions, both crews will have them, and if both crews have them, then of course there's no real advantage in that.
Does that mean that it is much more difficult for a crew to sink, or is it still possible?
It's pretty difficult for a crew to sink, especially if you see the water up ahead is getting bad. You can move to find some better water. It is, of course, still possible. They are small boats. If the waves are high enough, it gets worse and worse the more water fills up into the boat, so it can happen.
It just makes life more difficult. Not that they will be thinking about that at all. I guess it's all positive right now, is it all?
I suspect they will, although the coxes will be prepared for the rough water. They will have hopefully seen the course. They'll know where to expect the worst of it, so they will be prepared to make decisions about their steering if it comes to it.
Okay, well, the sun is out now, so hopefully brighter conditions, hugely, but much more enjoyable for the spectators. Zoe and Kath are going to head off to the commentary box, where they will join Andrew Cotter, who will describe for us the Cancer Research UK Women's Boat Race of 2016.
You ready? Let's go! Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, y'all. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, 100% reason to remember the name. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, 100% reason to remember the name.
Good afternoon. You think of all the days and the weeks and the months, all the work that's been done, and that was done to pay off in the next 20 minutes or so. The waiting almost over for the start here. You can see the life in the river, though, already from our overhead shots, and that wind direction there, as they sit in the start, is coming from the left and a little bit behind. So you think perhaps of the Thames as flowing out to sea and flowing in a linear direction, west to east, east to west, but it doesn't. It weaves around, so they head north-northwest first of all, and then after Hammersmith Bridge and into the second half of the race, they will really turn around into the wind, and the river will be venomous out there. Wayne Pommen is going to be out in the river for us, and it's pretty lively already, Wayne.
It is. There's a heck of a wind here. I can see it right here. I'm only a few feet away from the water, and there's gusts. And it's going to be hard for these boats to stay straight off the start. Both coaches are going to have to work very hard to stay aligned and have a high-quality start. These minutes on the start are nervous enough as it is. The minutes feel like hours, and it's even worse when there's this kind of wind out today.
And the start is so important. You might not think it would be in a race of almost 6,800 metres, 4¼ miles, but the first few strokes really are the sort of building blocks. They set the race for you, and to get a good start is vital. But you can see also the difficulty here that in these conditions the boats will start to splay around a bit, and first of all they can't really drift. They're on stake boats, they can't drift too far ahead of each other, but they can move in different directions and start to point towards one bank or the other. And you see the tide coming in as well. The women are racing a couple of hours before high tide. The men will race an hour before or so, so there's still quite a bit of river to rise there, but it flows with them because the tide is coming in. And we look down at Putney Bridge, the famous starting point, and just beyond that of the boat race. The boat race is, there's a little stone on the south bank there, just to the left of your picture, the University Stone, which marks the starting line of the boat race. And Oxford are on the Surrey station. They won the toss and chose that. They believe that's the favourite side. Just as Cambridge in the men's race, they won the toss and chose Surrey as well. You can see the boats moving again just a little bit. About a minute or so away from the start. At Cambridge, can this Cambridge crew somehow bridge the gap that was clearly there last year and has been in recent seasons as well? Because Oxford have dominated. They certainly dominated last year. Both crews with 3 returning blues: Oxford, Anastasia Chitty, Maddie Badkett, the president, and Lauren Kedar, and Cambridge with Ashton Brown, Daphne Marchenko, and Rosemary Ostfeld, the cocks. The umpire for this one is Rob Clegg, who previously umpired the men's boat race in 2011. There he is, and the Isis Goldie race last year. He rode in 94, 95, 96 for Oxford. That was in the middle of a period of domination for Cambridge. So his rowing days, I'm not particularly happy. Arms in the air suggest, tell us that Rosemary Ostfeld is not happy with the way her boat is sitting at the moment. Once the arm drops, that will signify that she is ready. You see Morgan Bain and Williams, the Oxford cocks on the far side, is happy with things at the moment. But her arm may go up in a moment. The boat's, as I say, drifting. So ready to go now. Rosemary Ostfeld puts her hand back up again. Both crews have to be satisfied that their boat has just the right direction really to start. It's, as I say, they're drifting around
Both
in the river,
crews,
but
get ready.
Rob Clegg is ready. I see the arm of Rosemary Ostfeld up again. And Morgan Bain and Williams has her arm up. Once that goes down, attention, go will be the simple instruction. Both arms up so quickly, Kath. It's so important to get this good start.
It's going to be crucial. We've seen with lots of races that if you're not ahead in the first period, then it's really hard to come back. So it's crucial to commit.
Rosemary Ostfeld happy. I think Morgan Bain and Williams has her arm up. You can see the Oxford boat ready now.
Go!
So attention, go, and they do go. And Oxford just sitting there for a moment on the start as Cambridge seem to get out more brightly. So they'll lift up here, the stroke rate creeping up over 40. It's a real bruising effort for the first minute or so, and then they'll settle into things. But this start is so important, Zoe.
Yeah, Oxford really did not look ready for that start there. Actually, contrary to the practice starts that I saw them do on Friday, when they looked really good and really sharp. So I'm quite surprised there that they really seemed to struggle with that first stroke. They were just, as you said, waiting. But as you can see, they're coming back into it now. They have a very strong mid-race pace. So once they get off this initial fast, hard, early part of the race, they'll be into it.
They see they're just a fraction down at the moment, Oxford. Cambridge will have the initial advantage of the sort of quarter-length advantage of the initial bend round by Craven Cottage, but Oxford are already starting to put a bit more of a push on after that sluggish start where they really were caught napping a little bit on the stake boats.
It's certainly going to help the Cambridge girls to feel that it's gone well from the first moment, to let them settle themselves down as their bodies start to kind of deal with the adrenaline that's been released and the sheer intensity of that start as well.
Well, beautiful conditions at the moment, certainly to look at. It is a bit bouncy out there, and we'll get even more lively, as we said, past Hammersmith Bridge once they turn around into the wind. But you can already see that Oxford have made up for that start and almost beginning to eke ahead there, as they'll have to try and come around the outside of the initial bend, which will favour the Cambridge crew on the Middlesex station, on the sort of north side of the river. But Cambridge are working hard now to hold on to Oxford. They're putting it in a bit of a push.
There's going to be a big commitment point here for the girls. The Cambridge girls have talked about the importance of coming out of the start and getting into something that maintains some of that intensity, that keeps them in the race, that will give them a chance later.
You can see here that Cambridge's stroke rate is slightly higher, so they're taking more strokes per minute than Oxford, which suggests that the pace they're setting now might be a little bit more unsustainable, whereas Oxford are on something slightly longer, slightly lower, could be more sustainable for them.
Well, getting close to clashing in Rob Clegg. The umpire just warning. He'll be looking to warn the crew, warn the cox who is straying into the other crew's water. Both crews, both coxes know the line that they are allowed to take. Many hours training and racing on the Tideway, but they are creeping together.
Cambridge! This actually means that the coxes are fighting for that water, and getting the advantage on this first bend is going to be crucial. And of course the crews are looking for the same line, so it's inevitable that when they're side by side, they're going to be pulled in closer together.
And the reason they both look for that racing line is because the fastest water is usually the deeper channel, which is closer to the middle here. It actually comes out a bit from Craven Cottage. It's quite far out from the Craven Cottage, the north bank, and they're both fighting for that fast water at the moment, and it's a good race in the early stages.
Cambridge cox Rosemary Osfeld has really done a good job there of holding Oxford out on that initial bend. She's done a lovely job of steering around there. Oxford also a good job of staying with her. I think she's doing a great job of keeping her crew in the race now, but I suspect as they come off this initial bend, Oxford are going to start to creep out on the straight.
Well, not too much between the crews in terms of their bows cutting through the water, and also the blades coming close together as well here. We might be getting closer to our first clash, but then Oxford, after a little bit of a warning from Rob Clegg, just drift out a little bit. And we'll see a great shot here of how wide they have to come round past Craven Cottage, because the faster water is much closer to that Surrey bank, the south bank on the left-hand side as we look.
It is good, aggressive coxing from Rosemary Oswald for Cambridge. And of course, when we get that overhead view, for us it's really easy to see where they are on the river and where the best place to be is. But when you're actually sitting in that boat, as Zoe will remember, it's really difficult to get that same perspective.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the hardest things about coxing the boat race, is knowing where that best line is. And as I know from my own horrible experience of the boat race, is that you can do a lot to make mistakes as a cox. And this looks like a significant moment now for Oxford as they're coming onto the straight away from Cambridge's bend.
There are little stages within races where coxes will ask for a push, and a push will be put on. It certainly seems to have happened there for Oxford, and Cambridge had that initial advantage of the quarter-length bend round Craven Cottage, but even with that, Oxford have taken out almost half a length there.
Yeah, this is a big moment. Oxford have made a move. Cambridge have been really aggressive coming out of that start. They did what they wanted, I think, that they talked about earlier in the week, which was making sure they had a good start and then kept up the intensity. For them, it's now they've got to find something that can give them that speed per stroke.
Now we can hear Rosemary Osfeld there, the very, very experienced Cambridge cox, a returning blue, and she worked with the men's crews as well, and she's trying to dig in her crew. Let's listen into the coxes.
Push it again! Legs! Legs! Keep crushing! You've got it! Legs through! Legs through! Legs through! Keep going, guys! Alright, I need you to go now!
There's cries and work that you're very familiar with, Zoe, and you can hear what she's trying to do. Just constant encouragement.
Yeah, you can start to hear the desperation creeping in there. She knows that this is a really vital moment to try and keep her crew in the race. And I do think they've done a very good job up to this point against a very strong Oxford crew. However, it looks like that Oxford crew have now made their decision to start to move away.
What you can really see is that inches per stroke thing that's happening for Oxford, where they've just got that tad more length. So the oars are in the water for that little bit longer, and that of course adds up each stroke, 35 strokes per minute, where you're just inching away, and they added that push on top. They've got more length in the water, and Cambridge are going to struggle at this point in the race to find more length, but there is everything you do day by day, that training to row a long stroke that under pressure you can maintain, and Oxford are doing that better at the moment.
And as they sail past one of the familiar sights of these races, the furniture depository, former furniture depository, very expensive flats now, you can see that Oxford are beginning to edge clear, and it'll come the point where Ashton Brown in the bow seat for Cambridge, she's the only one who can see anything of the Oxford boat, and as they push up towards Hammersmith there from overhead, we can see they're getting close together again, but these are desperate times for Cambridge, because now the big bend all the way around will favour Oxford, so this is going to be a hard 6 minutes for Cambridge. Wayne Pommen down in the water, what do you make of it?
Well, it's been a heck of a race up to this point, but Oxford, after that bad start, they've just had the better rhythm, the longer rhythm. And then about a minute ago, I saw them put in a big push, 20 to 30 strokes, and you can see the difference it's made. If they can do that again, they'll be able to walk away and get in front of Cambridge here in the next minute or two.
Once more, Rosemary Osfeld and Morgan Bainter-Williams trying to join their crews, but Cambridge hanging in there at the moment. In fact, they haven't lost anything. If anything, they've crept a little bit back, and once more they're coming close together, and the bow blade is going to come close to the stroke blade.
This is where the corner is going to really hurt the Cambridge crew. They've done a great job to get back, and they have not broken contact, so Oxford should not come across in front of them at this point.
I think that was both crews coming together, and as you could hear, the umpire was warning for both crews to move apart. But for me, that was far too close. You don't want to clash in the boat race. I know that full well, and that looked a little too risky. But having said that, Rosemary Osfeld is keeping her crew in the race with this steering.
This is a great job not to have lost contact. It really looked like Oxford were just going to move away, but the Cambridge girls have really fought hard to try and hold on contact. Can they now? It's critical. It's hard for them on the outside of the bend. The advantage is with Oxford. What can they do?
But just in the last 30 seconds, though, because the blade of the two-seat for Cambridge, Fiona Macklin, was very close to stroke of Lauren Kedar, but now Oxford have put in another push, or perhaps Cambridge have faded slightly. They've really got to hang on now, the light blues. They're coming together again, and this bend, of course, you see the big bend that sweeps round, all favours Oxford, and they really are in charge of this race now.
They're in choppier water too, which is much harder when you're behind, and the advantage on the course is definitely with Oxford, but Cambridge are battling hard.
But this is what we promised you, though. As soon as you come around this bend, and they're heading into the wind now, as you go south-southwest, once you get round this bend into Chiswick Reach and past the 8, you can see the river and just how they're having to battle with it, and which crew can cope with these conditions better.
Yeah, it's just one of those things with the boat race. You've got to deal with this water. In an Olympic event, you have time to postpone, but this is not something we do in the boat race. I went out yesterday and coxed the veterans boat race, and the water down here was absolutely appalling. So good to see both crews still maintaining their length, still rowing reasonably cleanly into this rough water.
And there's a better view of it. From up high, it looks fairly placid, but down there you can see just how they're grappling with. These boats are designed, even with airfoil riggers, to cut through the water. But this is a real test of all of the techniques.
Yeah, you can really see on the right-hand side of the picture here how rough the water is, and this might affect Cambridge more than Oxford. They do look like they have slightly rougher water, and you can see now how Oxford are starting to move away and how those waves, really hitting Cambridge hard there.
They are getting filthy water sent down to them. I mean, as if it weren't bad enough, but now they've got all sorts of puddles and dirty water coming down, so it's very, very difficult. The Cambridge boat is rocking around, and near impossible conditions to row in, but Cambridge are trying to maintain contact. Wayne Pommen come in again.
It is absolutely brutal down here, and Cambridge had the worst of it because they were furthest from the shelter of the Surrey bank. And in the last 30 seconds, I think Cambridge have taken on real water. I saw a few big waves come into their boat. I assume they've turned the pumps on, and it's looking very heavy now. And you can see Rosemary Osfeld heading for the shelter of the Surrey bank to try and get out of it.
Absolutely.
And now Oxford, for some reason, they're way over in the worst of the waves, and now they're struggling.
That's a strange move that they've made there, Zoe. You're looking at Oxford there and with a quizzical look on your face.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they were thinking there. They had the Surrey line, they had the better the water, and Oxford do seem to head over into the rougher water there. Oxford's Cox, Morgan Bailey-Williams, incredibly experienced, huge character, lots of charisma, but I'm not sure what, and now she's crossing back
they're in
over.
contact again.
Well, I mean, they're almost heading at ramming speed towards each other there, but that was a dramatic part of the race, and Oxford clearly thought better of their decision there and decided to come back. Now, they do have, they've got clear water, but they have the bend anyway. They were the boat on the Surrey station, but that has almost let Cambridge back into it.
This bend is running out fast for Oxford. They had plenty of clear water, and that mistake has really cost them. Cambridge do have a little bit of bend left for them after we get past Barnes Bridge.
Look at the water. There is water being taken on there. The electric pumps will be working very hard. They've got the splash guards on as well, the splash boards, but Cambridge are hanging on once again. I'm not sure Oxford will make that mistake once more of a desperate lunge to the north bank.
There's a major steering error there, certainly by Oxford. And the thing is, can Cambridge really capitalise on that? It's very difficult to make moves in rough water. It's hard to add anything to what you're doing. You're in a survival mode to some extent. You're constantly thrown off your rhythm by the conditions. But hopefully they'll have got a sniff of how much they caught them up, and now they need to try and do that, make a move somehow, and get some confidence that Oxford are making mistakes out here.
They work so hard all the time on your technique, and it comes down to minutiae as well, and just feathering the blade, and then suddenly you come out in these conditions and it's a very different prospect. Oxford have pulled clear again. You can see the lead that they have, but what life there is. The river in venomous mood today, and it's going to play a major part in this race, and certainly in the men's race to come.
That's what makes racing on the Tideway such a glorious thing. It is alive, it has character, it has personality, it gets angry, and this is an angry day from the Tideway.
Oxford, though, still with that lead, almost a length clear now, and they've still got the advantage. Their bend is almost played out now, but they still have the slight advantage of this large sweeping bend, and they'll head down towards Barnes, and now that order seems to have been restored. But just for a moment, Oxford, there was a fright for them there, and Morgan Bailey-Williams, I'm sure, will look back on that, but they've settled into a better rhythm now and are reasserting their authority in this race.
It looks like there's just a bit more life in the Oxford crew. It looks to me as if they're rating slightly higher as well, and they've just got that kind of lightness, whereas it looks heavier in the Cambridge boat. And when it starts to get heavy, then that tends to continue. It's hard to get out of a place that it's so heavy each stroke. How do you lighten it? Because actually by putting more effort in, everybody doing it together, that's the way to lighten it. But at this point, with this level of fatigue, that's incredibly difficult.
As we leave the pier here, we're coming into the last third of the race. It does look like Oxford have a commanding lead, but they don't seem to be moving away. Cambridge are sticking with them, and it could be interesting to see what happens if the water stays rough.
Yes, with that clear water, though, the final bend, there's no advantage for Cambridge because Oxford can choose their line, but you can see the chop in this water, and there are fascinating conditions today. And the flotilla behind us chopping at the water as well, but Rosemary Osfeldt is trying to make a bit of a move as well towards that Middlesex bank, and they're just hanging in there. It's a couple of lengths there. Certainly Oxford are in control, but there's still an outside chance for Cambridge.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when they come up now towards Barnes Bridge, because on the Surrey side, so Oxford side of the river, there is a real patch of dead water. It's very, very flat, it's very shallow, it's very slow. Does look like Oxford are crossing over now, obviously looking to stay out of that shallow water, but if Cambridge do move back on them, Oxford will have to move back out towards that slower water.
You can see Cambridge struggling with the water there, some big waves that really rocked them off. The boat rocked each way. It's tough going out there, and there isn't much shelter. This is the worst bit now in terms of waves.
Looks like Oxford have made a big move out of the stream here. They have decided they don't want to be in that rough water. They're moving straight into the bank. I'm not sure if that's going to pay off for them. Because they are a long way out of the best water now, a long way out of the stream.
Well, this is a test of coxing in the stream. This is we're finding out really where the stream is and whether that roughness is slowing them down or in fact giving them an advantage. All the Tideway legends who talk about it will say you've got to stay in the stream.
Well, shallow, slack water towards the bank, but they believe, Oxford, that there is greater shelter there, so there might be smoother water, and it sort of will cancel out the lack of the stream to help them. But I'm not sure what Oxford they're going to that Surrey bank, and yes, heading for that shelter, but I think Cambridge have coxed this rather better and given themselves still a chance. There's still that couple of lengths, 3 lengths even perhaps now, but Cambridge staying resolutely on the more established racing line, and Oxford heading for shelter. Wayne Pauman, come in again.
This is just the most interesting steering I have ever seen, at least in the last 10 years in a boat race. The creative coxing that's going on today. You know, Morgan Baden-Williams of Oxford making a hugely calculated move here to head for safe water along the Middlesex bank. At first I thought she was crazy, but now that I see what's happening to Cambridge in front of me, I think maybe Morgan was the smart one. Cambridge a half sunk here.
Well, Wayne, we could see
Oxford are rowing away.
I could see white horses engulfing the Cambridge boat there, so you can see the difficulties that Cambridge are in. So all sorts of trouble now, and that pump will be working so hard in that boat, and you can see the water standing in that shell. And Cambridge in real difficulty. Well, this is just about where the Cambridge men's boat sank in 1978. It would take an awful lot for a boat with modern appliances to sink now, but that's you can see the difficulty that Cambridge have.
The pumps are not going to help them at this point. This is not something the pumps can do.
There is a good chance that this Cambridge boat will not make it to the finish line.
Well, Cambridge are going to lose this race, and now it's a battle to finish. That's the view from Rosemary Osfeld. You can see what she's having to deal with, and you can see the water splashing around inside this boat, and it's creeping almost over the bow there into the seat of Ashton Brown, and real bother now. And suddenly that decision by Oxford to head for the shelter of the bank is a masterstroke. Cambridge are in real trouble here.
I think Cambridge had already shipped more water earlier as well, so they were carrying more water from after Hammersmith. It's going to be incredibly difficult for them. I mean, they're not racing, they are literally in survival mode now.
Well, their stroke rate has dropped right down. Oxford a long way clear. They are heading for victory, not far from the finish now, but Cambridge are labouring their way through the evil waters today of the Thames. And it's Graf for them simply to finish. They will shoot the central span of Barnes Bridge, and a rather more serene progress for Oxford, and Cambridge all the way back now. It's hard Graf for them now.
If they can get a little bit of clear water, the pumps will start working for them. It's as there's more water filling in when the pumps can't keep up. So perhaps as they clear out of Barnes Bridge now, if they can stay a bit higher out the water, they might start to ship some of it back out, and you'll see the pumps just feed over the side of the boat. You'll see them shooting water out. But with water like this, I think they might not make it.
There have been no sinkings in the women's boat race to date, and I fear that we may be about to see one.
Oh, wow.
Yep, they are almost fully underwater now. I can't see how this Cambridge boat is going to make the finish line.
Well, what a moment this is. A red flag is being waved, and in the shadows of Barnes Bridge, Cambridge are sinking.
OK, Cambridge, you're going to have to try and steer to the side if you can. We're going to pick you up. If you want to keep going, keep going.
Well, history is being made, not the history we wanted to see today, that's for sure.
Well, they want to keep going. They are here at Barnes Bridge. They are, well, they've got about 1,000 metres or so to go, but they're heading to the side. They've been, they want to keep going, says Rosemary Osfeld. They will all want to keep going, but is it even possible?
As I said, if they can find some shallow water, they might get some of this water out of the boat. They do just about seem to be going. I can't see how they're going to get to the finish line, but perhaps they will. They clearly want to finish this race.
Well, this would be a victory of sorts in itself if they can make it to the finish. Oxford will win this race. They are a long way clear, and they made the decision through Morgan Baden-Williams to head for shelter. They tried once along Chiswick Reach and perhaps misjudged it there, but then later towards Barnes they did it, and it was a masterstroke. Oxford sail on, row on, push on towards victory here in the 71st women's boat race. A dark blue victory it will be again, and victory once more for the likes of Anastasia Chitty, Maddie Badcock, Lauren Kedar. But they are a long way clear of Cambridge, who have their own battle against the river itself, and they seem to now have made it to some relatively calmer water near the bank, but it's still a struggle.
This is not about racing anymore, of course. It's just about their pride to finish the race at this point. I mean, they've been through hell and high water, quite literally. This is what you get in this race. It's not like Olympic racing. We're racing in March, which for itself, that means we have very different conditions. You can get all sorts of winds and weathers that you just don't have in summer racing. And we're on the Tideway, which is a whole different realm of training and racing than you get when you're in a horse at the Olympics or training in the summer. It's a different world, and it brings all these other factors that the weather and the water throws at you.
But the moment will shortly belong to Oxford once again as they come up to the brewery and the finish just before Chiswick Bridge and all the way back. You can just see, hidden by the trees a little bit in the shelter of the North Bank, Cambridge are gamely battling on, and I'm sure they are going to finish this now. It seems to have cleared a little bit for them now, but it is going to be victory again in the women's boat race for Oxford. They've chosen their course through Morgan Bainham-Williams and through Stroke Lauren Kedar, Maddie Badcock, the president, Anastasia Chitty in her 4th boat race, Elo Lewick, the Estonian, Ruth Sidorn, Janneke Jansen, Emma Spruce, and in the bow seat, Emma Lukasovic. Oxford are going to win, and by a handsome margin as well. They have beaten Cambridge, they have beaten the conditions as well, they have mastered this river in all its devilishness today. Oxford win the 71st women's boat race.
I think Oxford have done a good job there of keeping it together. They made a couple of serious mistakes, not just off the start, but also that steering error down the Ayot. But they made an excellent decision to head for safety, and they were the better crew in terms of their ability to keep going through that rough water.
There's Elo Lewick and Anastasia Chitty embracing, and the smiles of the victors. Janneke Jansen and Emma Spruce, and then in the bow seat, Emma Lukasovic. And they have these moments that are such familiar moments to all who've watched the boat race over the years as they gather beneath Chiswick Bridge, and they are a long way in the distance, and Cambridge struggle on, and it has been a real struggle, but the fact that they're finishing it is something.
It has been a struggle, and it's a loss, and that's another tough blow for Cambridge, who've been trying to rebuild, to really come back and have a crew that can win the race. And I think it's important to remember in the first half of the race, they did really take it to them. They did really hang on. There were some positives there, but otherwise Cambridge haven't had enough on the day once more.
So it is going to be a 4th successive defeat for Cambridge in the women's boat race, but past the finish post they come, which is something. It will be of no consolation to them at all, because they know that in this race it is win or lose, all or nothing. But they have finished. They have been beaten though by Oxford. They have been beaten by the river as well today.
It's always a desolate feeling. There is no consolation at this point. What they've been through, the tests that they've had the whole season, how far they've been stretched, tested themselves to prepare for this, and in the end the result is a loss, and that means nothing to take home.
Well, in recent years I've not seen a more graphic demonstration of what the river can do though, and why this race and the men's race, why they are so special and so different and so difficult at times.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what makes the boat race more exciting and more interesting to the spectator than some of the Olympic courses, is the fact that these races can change so quickly.
It's something they do in their preparation, so it's a fact to the coaches. You know, they haven't just got to do technique, they've actually got to make sure they know the river and they can prepare the coxes to make those decisions that we really saw the Oxford Cox thinking about. Cambridge Cox had that choice to make as well.
And I wonder if as well the men watching this, we've got the 2 reserve boat races to come as well, they will all be fascinated viewers of this, because there's so much to learn from this race. Again, you know, this is all about this particular race for these 2 crews, but the races to come, they will be very, very interested in what's happened over the last 20 minutes.
All the other crews have actually boated already, so it'll be interesting to see if they're getting any feedback from their coaches somehow from the bank of what's happened during this race, because that would be vital information.
And a word, Zoe, for Morgan Bainham-Williams, because it was a big decision. We saw that early decision to steer across on Chiswick Reach and make for the North Bank, and we thought at the time I think it was the wrong decision, but later on it proved to be the right decision to go later on for the shelter.
The first decision was definitely a mistake, and she got lucky that Cambridge didn't close up on them more, but the second decision was definitely the right decision there. And you saw Morgan standing there waving their penguin, which they found floating around somewhere and became their crew mascot. So that was what she obviously had with her in the boat there, ready for this part of the race.
So a good job the penguin was not in the Cambridge boat. It would have come to a sorry end. But I thought for a moment there, coming up to Barnes Bridge, that Cambridge were going to sink. And I mentioned we hadn't had one in the men's race since 1978, and it was Cambridge who, in a very similar position around Barnes, went down. But they made for the shelter under the guidance, I think, and sensible guidance of umpire Rob Clegg. They made for the relative shelter of the bank and made it home. But the victory, everything belongs to this crew, to Oxford. Once again, they have won the women's boat race. See Emma Spruce coming forward. And Anastasia Chitty, what a strength she has been as well. I say president last year in her fourth blue boat, her fourth victory. So I say what a record she has.
It's a really class crew. You can see there's experience from last year in it. There's been a real core that have competed for many years for Oxford, that have really contained and sent on from year to year, sent forward that experience of what's required to win.
So there we are. Oxford are the winners and steered very well in the end by their cocks Morgan Bainham-Williams. Let's hear from her now.
Yes, Andrew, thank you very much indeed. Morgan Bainham-Williams is alongside me, high-fiving everybody as she gets off the boat. You know, the guys in commentary were saying pretty risky tactics today. Just talk us through the strategy.
I mean, it got pretty wavy out there, and I think there was a point where I realised that the waves were outweighing the benefit of the stream, and in the inshore zone has got a lot less waves in there. It's got some more shelter, so I just tried to get the guys over there as quickly as I could without getting any water on the boat. And we had the pumps on and off all the way, trying to get the water out, and you know, they did such a good job where the wind's picking up and you could barely hold on to the blades, but they just kept getting them in, tried to drive them out the wash as best I could, and then once I came around the corner from Barnes and I could see that the stream was probably pretty good there, the waves were down a bit, and I just thought, right, let's stay there and get back out there.
Brilliant performance. Would you agree you didn't get off to the best possible start, Morgan?
I think our four-girl may have missed a stroke, but things happen and you've got to remain focused on the stroke we're on.
The winning president, Maddie Badcott, is alongside us as well. Maddie, many congratulations. Big hugs here. Amazing performance from your crew, but also your cocks. What a performance today.
Yeah, we're so lucky to have Morgan. She absolutely smashed it. I think those conditions are probably worse than anything I've ever rode out on the Tideway, but honestly, we train all year to be ready for anything, and we're just so glad that it's turned out well for us.
And you were here last year victorious. How does this compare to last year, Maddie? As president?
Last year I was over the moon to win, but this year, in some ways, it means so much more to me because I've worked so hard to help build this team, and this was an insane race, and I'm so glad that our training for the whole year really paid off.
And you have such an incredible team spirit in this crew, don't you, Maddie?
Yeah. This team is probably the best team I've ever been part of, and because we care so much for each other and we care so much for Morgan, and we've built so much over this year, I think that's what got us through the race, really.
Let's have a word with Anastasia Chitty as well. I think Anastasia can join us. Many congratulations. We chatted last year when you won as president, and obviously Maddie has that role this year. How does this compare to last year, Anastasia?
Well, the race was very different.
Entirely different, completely different conditions.
Never imagined they could be that bad. And we ended up going down the inside of the river. It was a different kind of rowing, but so exciting, and you just decide those are the conditions you want to race in, and it's pretty good fun.
Morgan got her tactics and her strategy absolutely bang on today.
Oh yeah, she did a great job. We saw Rosemary move over from Cambridge and we were like, we need to get over there. And yeah, once we realised that's where the better water was, Morgan did a great job.
4 in a row. How does that sound?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I've just been so fortunate to row with 4 years of amazing Oxford women, and we've got another couple of years at Oxford, and yeah, hopefully it'll keep going.
I shall let you go and rejoin the victorious party. Thank you very much indeed. We shall see you for the presentation. Thank you, Anastasia.
From the delight and the pride of the Oxford crew victorious to the desperation of Cambridge, how much that hurt, but how well they did to finish, because particularly down Chiswick Reach, that boat was taking on so much water that it was actually up over their thighs. How on earth they managed to keep above water just enough to get to the finish line. Catherine Granger with me. I mean, that was more like watching the America's Cup than watching rowing.
And I bet they were wishing they had huge sails to help them. It was very, very dramatic. I mean, the cameras can pick up a lot of it, as we're seeing now, but to be honest, as an athlete in that position, when the water is filling everything below them, the whole boat is full of water, the pumps are not responding quick enough to get the water out, and you're fighting it. So to be honest, for Cambridge to finish at all is a huge achievement for them. There was a point in the race where they stopped racing and had to just try and finish the race. I mean,
here, Rosemary Osfeld puts her hand in the air, I think to say I want to carry on. So the red flags were going. I mean, she is almost sat in water there, as she is basically.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the bit of the boat that she's sitting in is the lowest part, so it's actually underwater at that point of the race. The umpire brings out the red flags, which say it's okay to stop. It's actually for a safety precaution they can stop, and it's the Cambridge decision to finish the race. Now, this is a race, as you heard in the commentary, that they've spent months and months and months preparing for. Nobody wants to finish 2/3 of the way down the course, so I think it was the right decision from the cops and from the athletes to finish the race. But now they'll just be desperate, upset to lose, but then upset to lose in that way.
Yeah, well, it looks as if Jason is right there with them, so let's hear the reaction of the Cambridge crew.
Yeah, Claire, thank you very much indeed. The President, Hannah Roberts, is here. And look at this. All the crew decided to come and surround Hannah for this interview. And Hannah, you must be utterly heartbroken. But, that's an amazing end to a race, carrying on such remarkable team spirit.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really an option that we didn't finish. We put so much into this year, and obviously once we started going down, the result was not going to go our way, but we had to see it through to the end.
Your boat appeared to be taking on so much water. What happened? When did you realise it was all going wrong?
Through the second half of the year, it just started coming in faster than our pumps could get it out, and once it was filling up, there was no way the pumps could overcome it.
I know it's defeat. I know you've worked so hard over the past couple of months. How proud are you of your wonderful crew who've gathered around you today?
I'm so proud. I couldn't ask for better women to do this with, and I'm just so proud of it.
Commiserations. Thank you very much indeed. I know that's been difficult. Thank you very much indeed, Hannah. Well done, team. Thank you very much.
Hannah Roberts, the president of the Cambridge Women's Boat Club. There is Christine Wilson, the coach, who has now continued her 100% record. That is 4 from 4 for her, and she has got some set up there. They were utterly dominant, but it was a memorable race. I mean, I genuinely can't remember seeing anything like that, and I wonder what it was like on the banks. Helen Skelton is round about the Hammersmith point. They were still afloat at that stage.
They were going well at this stage, and the crowd whooped as they went by. Even Sean Walsh got excited. I found an activity that means Sean is too exhausted to talk. Right, Sean, you tried to suggest that those ladies had a pathetic attempt. Now, how hard is it?
No, yeah, but at least I didn't sink.
I think you should get back on there. Let's stick to this activity where he cannot talk. Ladies, you row. Yes. How gutted, how embarrassed will they be?
Oh, they will be so gutted. It's really, really tough, yeah. But, I mean, they did so well, and to sink, it's really unfortunate, but they've done very, very well, so they should be very proud.
I think plenty of people should be proud of them. Yeah, it's a phenomenal effort to even get in that boat, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Really, really tough, but very, very well done.
Incredible effort, chaps. You are in the celebratory camp because you both go to Oxford. Are you confident of a double?
Yeah, very confident. I think, although Cambridge is the bookies' favourites, I think, they're taller, but I think that the dedication of the Oxford crew should really shine through.
And you row, how tough is it out there?
Oh, it's pretty tough. Conditions aren't great, but they're Oxford winning conditions. I think, the time's right.
They're confident, Sean. Nobody told you to stop rowing. No. Get back. It's 4 miles out there. It's longer than an Olympic course. Get rowing.
I did 100 metres in 21.9 seconds.
100 metres is a drop in the ocean, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a drop in the ocean.
Sean, carry on rowing. Claire, I'll make sure he sticks with this rowing machine for a little while longer.
Yeah, just don't put him out on the water, because I'm not sure he'd survive it out there. Maddie Badcott, the winning Oxford president, said the worst conditions she has ever rowed in. But Oxford celebrate a dominant success. Cambridge win plaudits for their bravery and for managing to complete the course. Nadine Gradel-Iberg is with me. These are rowers you know well. You've competed with them. You won the race with some of them, certainly with Anastasia, with Maddie. How impressed were you with what they managed out there today?
I am incredibly impressed and incredibly proud of what they've done out there, especially Lauren in the stroke seat. Also keeping up that rhythm in these conditions is incredibly difficult. I think they did an amazing job to deal with the conditions, and also some very good decisions from Morgan to take them into the calmer water.
Exactly, when everybody in the commentary box was saying, what is she doing? Well, the losing crew, Cambridge, will come up to the podium first. Jason, it's all yours.
Yes, Claire, thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the great British sporting events. What drama we have had here this afternoon for the boat race. Your presentation party this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Sir Harpal Kumar, CEO of Cancer Research UK, Helena Morrissey, Fergus Murison, and our Olympic champions Helen Glover and Heather Stanning will present the trophies. Would you please welcome the losing crew, Cambridge University Women's Boat Club, led by President Hannah Roberts, ladies and gentlemen. The crew, Ashton Brown, Fiona Macklin, Alice Jackson, Thea Zabel, Daphne Martushenko, Miriam Goudet, Zara Guzzi, and Rosemary Ostfeld. Commiserations to Cambridge. Please show them your appreciation. A huge round of applause for our losers this afternoon. But once again, just like last year, huge congratulations to Oxford University Women's Boat Club, our winners this year, once again. Led by Cox, Morgan, Bain and Williams, Emma Lukasevich, Emma Spruce, Joannika Janssen, Ruth Sidon, Elo Lewick, Anastasia Chitty. Once again on the winners' podium, Lauren Kedar and the winning president, Maddie Badcott. Four out of four now for Anastasia. Sir Harpal Kumar handing out the medals. Helen and Heather are standing by to present the trophy to the victorious Oxford University Women's Boat Club, winners once again after a terrific performance here. Your president, Maddie Badcott. Sir Harpal, if you can hand over the trophy now, sir, to Helen, who has the honour, with Heather, of handing the trophy to Oxford University Women's Boat Club and the president, Maddie Badcott.
As the Oxford women celebrate, their male counterparts take their boats down to the water. And the Oxford men coming into this race on a similar dominant run of form, having won the last three races. But this is one of the most inexperienced crews for a while. Just one returning blue in Jamie Cook. Their president is Morgan Gerlach from America. He'll be rowing at number 3. Here is the Cambridge crew. And they have returning blues amongst them. They're Cox, Ian Middleton, he's in charge for the 3rd year in a row. And the core of the boat, 3 big Americans, Luke Juckett, Henry Hofstott, who's the president, and Ben Rubel, the vice president. Their average height is 6'4", the average weight 13 stone 13. They are the heavier crew, and they have strong form coming into this. But as we saw from the women's race, the conditions out there are as tough as they have ever been on boat race day. So genuinely anything could happen. Now, if you think that the rivalry between these two great universities is limited to the banks of the Thames, then think again. They've been competing all year at a variety of different sports. Here's Andrew Cotter to tell you more.
Well, the sporting clubs of Oxford and Cambridge have been locked in ferocious competition for well over 150 years. The boat race is, of course, the oldest and the best known, but here at Twickenham, for example, we have the varsity matches in rugby union, which give a real taste of the fierce rivalry between the two universities. It was the Dark Blues of Oxford who came out on top in the men's varsity match, while Cambridge were triumphant in the women's fixture. So what's next? What about powerlifting? The light blues, no jerks as they cleaned up there. Some other students were out on the piste, as students do. Skiing and snowboarding finished 1-1, which meant that Cambridge led by 4 wins to 3 at the end of December. Staying with a wintry theme, no jolly hockey sticks here. Oxford's women swept all before them out on the ice. And their male counterparts were kings of the court, winning the basketball. Cambridge romped home in the horse racing, but in outdoor ultimate frisbee, yes, that's a sport, it was Oxford who were flying high. Cambridge were squeezed out in the squash, and they were crushed in the 100th men's lacrosse fixture. But in the women's cross country, it was Oxford left trailing. So on to Rugby League, which doesn't quite have the same varsity background as Union, but Oxford were in a different league. 70-0 winners to help the Dark Blues lead 24-23 at the end of February. They also took the women's gymnastics with a spring in their step. Meanwhile, Oxford hosted the 109th varsity boxing competition, which saw the first ever Women's Blues awarded. Their match ended in a draw, with Oxford winning the men's event.
It means so much to everyone here. It's so much bigger than you that everyone just kind of gets caught up in the narrative. It's been going for hundreds of years. Like, it's just spectacular.
Moving on, Cambridge had the upper hand in trampolining, also in korfball, I'm not quite sure what that is, and of course cheerleading. But the Dark Blues came out on top at badminton, winning the men's and women's matches earlier this month. And in that very traditional British sport, rather gentle pursuit, Australian rules football, it was Oxford who ended up doing all the celebrating.
There'll be a few beers and drinking out of that delicious cup.
And so, with the overall standing delicately poised, we're here just a few hundred yards from the start of the boat races at Craven Cottage for one of the oldest fixtures in world football. It began in 1873. It is time for the latest edition of the varsity football match.
And that football match has been won by Oxford. The score 2-0. This the first goal from Alex Satsenius. Great skill there. And that means that for the varsity sports of the season 2015 to 2016, Cambridge so far have 37 wins, Oxford have 38, 2 draws, and there are 16 remaining sports this academic year. Well, we are on the banks of the Thames now. Constantine Louloudis and George Nash are with me. We've got our life jackets on. Catherine Granger is here as well, because we're about to get on a speedboat to head down the river, which normally is something I really look forward to, but given today's conditions, I'm not so sure.
I know, watching this sort of race to win turn into a battle to survive, I don't know how we'll be faced out there. We've got an engine.
Yeah, well, indeed, that helps. Constantine, you would have watched the women's race closely there. What did you make of it, and indeed how difficult it is going to be there?
Well, the truth is we were relying on a smartphone connection over there, and it was all a bit of a hubbub, so I couldn't see much, but from what I saw, it looked absolutely savage. Those conditions, never seen anything, well, I've never rode in anything like that, and I think it's a bit merciful they made it to the finish, and I think it's going to become really tactical for the men's race. You know, there's going to be shelters for different crews at different stages of the course, and I think the Coxes are going to have a big role to play.
OK, well, let's head out there, because Matthew Pinsent was following the women's race. He was the reserve umpire, and he can give us a real update on how difficult it's going to be for the men. Matt.
Claire, thank you. We've just returned on the umpire's launch, which follows both the women's race and the men's race. And I think everybody saw the absolutely biblical conditions that are out there. There's a wind that's coming against the tide, which is really making huge mountains of water out beyond Chiswick, which is where the Cambridge women got into such difficulty. And the real challenge now is that on an incoming tide, the river is coming up and up all the time. And that's going to make the conditions, in theory, worse and worse. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that everyone is going to get to the finish line in this race, but there's no doubt that these conditions are absolutely brutal for the crews that are out there racing. We're going to keep our fingers crossed, as I say, for a safe finish for this race coming up, but it is really, really tough.
Well, James is going to be our driver here, taking us safely, hopefully, to the finishing position. For Constantine and George, I mentioned earlier that they used to race in opposition to each other in the boat race, now both part of Team GB. And they could yet, in Rio, be rowing alongside a man called Mohammed Sabihi, who had no rowing background, who hated water, actually hated the sport of rowing when he started it now, but could be part of the Olympic team in just a couple of months' time. Here's his story.
Feeling on the water is unparalleled to anything I've ever done. That feeling of harmony, getting a reward for work. When you look at the boat race and you look at our team, you build a bond for life. My first rowing stroke, I was 15. I took to it really badly. I kept falling in. So there were many moments where in the first 6 months I wanted to quit because I hated the sport. Hi, Sue.
Hi, Ray, how are you?
You're good, thank you very much. Yourself?
Yes, fine, thank you.
I remember my first day, you got me out in the single out on that river.
Yep.
And then you got me in the river very quickly.
45 seconds, yeah.
let's go and have a look at this gym.
Hasn't changed much then since
No, it hasn't changed
2008.
much. It's still got that Rocky IV feeling to it. Nice and cold, very back to basics style of training. It was not common in my school for people to row. You know, it was the basic sports of football, rugby, basketball, tennis. At the time, I still had thoughts that there could be a prejudice, that there were these stigmas that you couldn't row or it was public school. And that actually is not the truth. The first moment where the penny dropped was the Indoor Erg Champs in 2003. I'd been useless on the rowing machine, and then I won my age division. And it was something that actually made me think, oh, I can do this. I was born being a Muslim, and it's also been my personal choice growing up to carry on with that faith. There's been no prejudice against me about being a Muslim. It's been very accommodating as a sport to allow me to fast, and I like the fact that I'm an ambassador for the religion. I don't like the fact that I'm one of the first, but hopefully that's for the next generation.
Well, Constantine and George obviously know Mo very well. He was talking there about trying to fast and still train. Now, Ramadan next year is due to be from, I think, June the 5th or 6th until, well, 30 days later. How would he do that a month before the Olympics? Can he fast at another time?
Well, I think he can put it off until the winter, but I think it comes at a cost to him. I think, if I've got this correctly, he has to pay for 1,500 meals for people in his native country of Morocco. So, and then do Ramadan in the winter back in the UK, I think. But I could be wrong on that. But
yeah, no, I rowed with Mo at the Olympics in 2012, and Ramadan fell during the Olympics that time. That's exactly what he did. So he moved it to December. He made a sizable charitable contribution to a Moroccan to have effect in Morocco, I think. And then he was able to do it in December and get permission from his imam, all of whom apparently were very supportive.
He's a great character. He's a wonderful guy, and I know you both think a very, very talented rower. Right, James, we're off down to the finish. We're going to hear from Andrew Cotter, obviously, in the commentary box, and before that, Helen Skelton, who's at Hammersmith Bridge.
Yes, we are surveying the river situation at the moment because this young man is a rower at Cambridge. Would you want to be out there right now?
It's a lot choppier than it looks.
If they gave you a seat in the boat this afternoon, would you do it?
Yeah.
You would? Yeah. When you say it's a lot choppier than it looks, it does look a bit like a mill pond from here to people just having a nice little meander along the south bank of the river, sitting in there on that surface. We've seen how difficult it was for the Cambridge ladies earlier. How difficult is it?
It's hard to describe, but it's not the same as it looks here. It's definitely not flat.
What do you reckon, Sean? Has this whet your appetite for rowing yet?
Oh, well, I've done the rowing machine, so I've experienced what these athletes go through. I understand their pain and what they're going through. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Who I think Oxford is it? Oh, thank you for people passing me alcohol.
The level of dedication is something I'm not suspecting that you are too familiar with. Think about how much these guys train, like professional athletes, like full-time athletes.
7 hours a day or something like that?
Twice a day.
Not 7 hours a day, twice a day.
They train for 7 hours in total, 6 days a week.
That's incredible. The only thing I do for 7 hours is sleep. Nothing else I do for 7. There's nothing. That's incredible.
You're an inspiration.
Thank you.
Hey, turn your eyes this way because soon, very soon, you will see our colleague Claire Balding making her way down the river, making her way to the finish line so that she can take in the men's boat race. This is your first experience of the race so far.
Yeah.
How are you finding it?
I'm loving it. I'm really looking forward to this. Who's meant to be winning this one? Oxford or Cambridge? I've got no idea. Do you know who's meant to win?
Who do I know? No, that's kind of the idea with sport. You don't know the outcome beforehand.
But everyone knew that Oxford were going to win that.
Well, no, not everybody knew. Let me go down the line. Have you got a prediction, Oxford or Cambridge?
Cambridge, certainly.
Do you have an affinity with Cambridge?
I may go there, so yes.
You may go
probably.
there, the jumper reveals it all.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not where'd you get that? JD Sports.
I'm concerned at where this might go, so let's turn our eyes to the river and keep our eyes out for Claire Balding making our way down. Is it Balding? Is it Brosnan? There she is.
Look at that. She's Bond. Claire's turned into Bond. She wants the next Bond role. Look at that. She's cheating.
She could absolutely nail it. Give her a wave. Everybody wave to Claire.
It's Claire. Hello, Claire.
Glamorous and elegant as ever. There she goes. Claire Balding.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Claire.
How are you? I'm Claire.
Hi, I'm Luke. Nice to
Luke.
meet you. Hi, Ben.
Ben, very nice to meet you both. This is very tidy.
It always looks like this.
Yeah, right, okay.
We rode at Wisconsin together. We went to U23 camp together. We both got cut from U23 camp together. Both kind of came to Cambridge together. We both lost the boat race together.
We're both going to win it together this year.
Yep.
Do they bring out the best in each other, do you think?
I think so. I think they're very different, but they complement each other really well. Luke is very emotional. He wears his heart on his sleeve, whereas Ben is much more calm and cool.
You must feel like more than friends, more than teammates. You must feel like family.
Being on the same team for such a long time like we have, we've seen a lot of success and failure together. You can kind of tell when the other person's maybe not having a good practice or a good day.
When were you both first aware of the boat race?
For me, it was 2010. We had a Wisconsin guy here, Derek Rasmussen.
That was my first year at Wisconsin. And the fact that it could lead somebody who was once just like me all the way to England, all the way to Cambridge, doing the boat race was a very inspiring thing to see.
What was your parents' reaction when you first mooted the idea of coming to Cambridge and rowing in the boat race?
So initially, my dad said he thought it was one of the stupidest things he's ever heard. But they recognized my kind of passion for it and have been nothing but supportive my entire 3 years that I've been here.
How strong would you say the Cambridge boat is this year?
Strong. We have had some good success early on in the year, and we sort of used that as a platform to build our 8 off of.
I think we have a core this year of guys returning and actually a newcomer, Lance, who has a lot of international experience. So we have this core that can really drive the whole team.
What do you think is going to happen this year?
In terms of race, how we're going to win.
We shall see the confidence that all sportsmen have to show outwardly. Of course, sometimes even the sportsman himself does not actually believe it deep down, but you sense that this Cambridge crew does believe it, and with good reason based on their training and their performances. But again, the variables today, the river, throw everything into a little bit more uncertainty. Just to update you on the reserve races, Cambridge women, Blondie beat Osiris. Cambridge women won the reserve race, and Oxford, Isis beat Goldie, Oxford winning the reserve race there. So just one more race to come, and it's time to get a bit more technical here and take you inside the Oxford boathouse in the company of Jamie Cook as the two crews warm up. Oxford's only returning blue, Jamie Cook, who can explain a bit more about the boat itself and the roles of the men who fill it.
Hi, I'm Jamie Cook and I sit in the 7th seat of the Oxford University boat. I'm going to show you the ins and outs of our boat, but also the roles of the rowers within the boat. Have you guys made that really stiff? Quickly explain how rowing works. So what we have is a sliding seat that is connected to a fixed footplate. We each have an oar, and the aim is to lever our body weight through the water to try and propel the boat as far as possible in every stroke. So this is our Cox. He not only steers us, but also communicates our race strategy. He uses these steering columns to push a rudder that shifts the 40-foot boat along the course. Next, I've forgotten his name. Now, our stroke man, Nick. Now, Nick is not only the biggest, strongest, and most sensual man, he also sets the cadence and the rhythm for us to follow. Now, next is the middle four. These guys set the power and the endurance that we need in the stern to give us the right length. This guy here, our 3-man, he is our technical wizard. Yeah. He sits here and he connects the sort of timing between the bow pair all the way through down the boat. Next is the bow pair. So these guys, unfortunately, have to experience the worst of the conditions. All the wind, it's like sitting in a Formula One car. It's going up and down and sideways. These guys here, it's really important that they are able not only control their body weight and being nimble in the bows, but also control their blade so they're able to attack the opponents if needed. So that's the roles of the boat, but essentially what it comes down to is timing, teamwork, and sheer power all the way down the course. So we cross the finish line first.
A couple of things that Jamie didn't get a chance to show us were the electric pump, as we talked about in splashboards, which I'm sure we will be talking about. But now the start just a few minutes away, and it's time to meet the two crews in the words of their presidents.
I'm Henry Hofstadt, Cambridge president, and I'll be sitting at 6. And this is my crew. Rowing in the bow seat, we have Felix Newman. At 2 is Ali Abbasi. Sitting 3 is Charlie Fisher. Rowing in the 4 seat is Clemens Augsburg.
The approach is better than last year. I think we've just built an internal confidence that makes us believe we can win this race.
Adding some strength at 5 is Luke Juckett. At 7 seat is Ben Rubel. At stroke is Lance Treadle.
On March the 27th, we're going to line up side by side, and all that matters is who crosses the line first. It's win or lose.
And at cox is Ian Middleton.
My name is Morgan Gerlach, and I'm the president of Oxford University Boat Club, and I'd like to introduce our crew. At bow, we have George McCurdy.
We're still aware of how well we've done in the past as a university, but each year is different. This is our year, this is our story.
In 2 seat, we have James White. Sitting in 4 seat, we have Josh Bogowski. Rowing in the 5 seat, we have Leo Carrington. In 6 seat, we have Jürgen Veit. Taking on 7 seat, we have Jamie Cook. Stroking the boat, Nick Hazel.
Once I started training for it, I was going to do everything I could to ensure that I made it in the end. That's why I'm here after 4 years.
Coxing this year's boat is Sam Collier.
It really is a challenge like no other, and it's just an amazing thing to have the opportunity to do.
Those are the two crews who sit now on these stake boats at the start, just past Putney Bridge. And Oxford actually were late to the start. They've been given 1 false start. 2 false starts seem disqualified. I think it would have to take something drastic. They would have to be about 400 yards down the river before they were disqualified. I think that would take a very brave umpire, but just an indication of things that can sometimes go wrong in the boat race. And an intriguing race, especially bearing in mind what we've seen with the women's boat race and all the conditions. And now that'll just added to the nervous tension. Zoe de Toledo and Wayne Pommel alongside me, but this promises to be fascinating.
Oh, today the conditions are totally decisive. We saw it in the women's race. I mean, I think without the pumps today, the Cambridge women would literally be swimming in the water. It was like nothing we've seen for over a decade.
So they sit there now and they wait, and again we stress that when the Coxey's arms are up, the Coxey's Sam Collier and Ian Middleton, they are not happy with the way they are, but both arms are down at the moment.
Being late to the start and getting that initial false start warning might not cause problems for a disqualification, but it might unsettle the crew, and it might mean that the umpire's on the lookout for Oxford to make another mistake.
The umpire for this one is Simon Harris. A year after he umpired the women's boat race, he rowed for Cambridge in the 82 and 83 boat races. They're both won by Oxford. The arm of Sam Collier is up, and you see that Oxford are in the Middlesex station, and Cambridge won the toss and they chose Surrey. It was won from Surrey by the women's crew for Oxford, and the arm of Ian Middleton is up. Both Coxes, in fact, with their arms up. But Surrey, you'd think it would favour the Surrey station today. Usually, it doesn't particularly matter if conditions are neutral, but today it has to favour the Surrey station.
Yeah, with the wind from the south, it makes all the sense in the world that every crew that won the toss today chose Surrey. I don't think you'd ever choose Middlesex on a day like today. But as we saw in the women's race, in the second half of the course, all bets are off.
Well, these are the moments that they gather themselves and they battle the nerves and the tension for all the work they have done over the months and the dreams they've had perhaps sometimes for years. Again, both Coxes still uncertain as the boats move about.
Oxford.
We were ready for a moment, but then the arm of Ian Middleton went up in his third boat race. Very, very experienced. You can see the bows of the boats just wandering around in the strong tide now coming in. This is the strongest tide, an hour before high tide. It's rushing in past the blades there, and you've got to get the start right. Just dipping the blades in to steady the boat. And the arm of Ian Middleton up on the Surrey station, but he's ready now. We're ready now. Go is the instruction from Simon Harris. The 162nd boat race is underway, and both crews try and push out up to 45 strokes a minute. Desperate for the best start here, and they will have that fierce pace for a minute or so and then settle into that rhythm. But who gets the better start?
I think Oxford got away slightly cleaner there. Cambridge looked to be pointing slightly towards the Surrey bank. I don't know if that was bad planning or bad execution on the start there. But actually now it looks like Cambridge are moving up.
Oxford are not used to being in this position of being underdogs. Can they cope with that? Sean Bowden has worked so hard to take some athletes who are raw, they have potential, but they're not necessarily great oarsmen, but he's fashioning them and making them into those oarsmen, but they are going to have to do it the hard way today from the Middlesex station, with the wind not favouring them, and they're less experienced. They don't have the returning blues of Ben Rubel, Henry Hofstadt, Luke Juckett and Cox Ian Middleton for Cambridge, and Cambridge with the slight advantage at the moment.
Yeah, this is the first year in a number of years where you'd say on paper Cambridge might have the slightly better crew. So the question is, can they make it happen? Can they get ahead of that reputation, that confidence that Oxford has built for themselves over the last few years?
I think Cambridge look the tidier crew as we've come away here. Lance Treadle looks very relaxed there in the stroke seat of Cambridge.
Matthew Pinston is there in the water watching this one for us. Your early thoughts, Matthew?
I think it's a very even start. The weather at the moment, we're all expecting the weather to get a lot worse as we go down the course. At the moment, it's almost benign, the conditions here. But Cambridge looked very smooth and very confident at this stage. Ominous, I think, for Oxford, even with their corner on the Middlesex turn by Fulham Football Ground.
Yes, you can see the Cambridge bow seat and two seat of Felix Newman and Ali Abbasi have just edged clear of Oxford, and they do have that early advantage, as Matthew was saying. Ominous signs for Oxford. They do have, the dark blues do have that early advantage, the quarter length advantage of the Middlesex bend round Craven Cottage. There it is, and the boat's named today Kevin and Daniel, after Kevin Wyman, who was Cox for Cambridge in the late 90s and sadly died last year in a plane crash. And of course Daniel Topolsky, a legend of the boat race and once of this parish, as a colleague and commentator and great coach of the boat race as well.
Yeah, just connected right out there. Really deliver those.
Yeah, the Oxford Cox, Sam Collier, sounds very relaxed at the moment. He doesn't seem that worried that his crew's down on Cambridge.
Just flowing through. Oxford as war. Keep it.
Sam Collier, we're hearing the Oxford Cox. We're also hearing the voice of Simon Harris, the umpire, just with an early preemptive warning as they start to creep together, and Cambridge being warned for straying into Oxford's water. We might see the first clashes of the day, but then they begin to pull apart again, and the umpire has done his job.
Yeah, Cambridge responded quickly to that warning from the umpire. There could have been a clash there, but they did their job. They listened and they turned away quickly.
Sam Collier, well, he doesn't quite have the boat race experience of Ian Middleton, but he does have great international experience as well, and comes through that school of rowing as well, Hampton School, where so many great oarsmen have come from, the Livingston brothers and the Smiths, and more recently Carl Hudspeth. But Cambridge with a clear advantage now, and Oxford are going to have to come from behind as they begin to let slip a third of a length, perhaps even half a length now.
Say that looks like nearly 2/3 of a length there. Cambridge just starting to stretch out that lead. They still look that little bit more relaxed, that little bit cleaner and more together than the Oxford crew.
And Cambridge.
Now Cambridge have this first bend coming up in their favor, and this is where if they want to finish the race, they need to step on the gas and break clear, because once both crews come around the bridge, all bets are off again, because the water's going to be very rough and Cambridge want to be in the lead.
We've heard from Sam Collier, the Oxford Cox. Let's dip into the words of Ian Middleton. This is
On the feet, 35. Now stretch, go. Stretch. Stretch. Stretch, yeah. Right, it's going to be really tough, really clingy here, guys.
And Cambridge stroking just slightly higher at the moment, 36-35, and they have a more than half a length lead. And the boats coming together again a little bit, but Cambridge with that clear advantage at the moment and moving along nicely.
This is where Oxford are going to be looking to put in a big push. They need to maintain overlap here, and then they're going to need to stay with Cambridge around the outside of this next bend.
Well, traditionally, Sean Bowden, coach crews, the coach of Oxford, tend to make a big push in the middle of the race, really lifting it around Hammersmith Bridge, and they're going to have to do that now because they've given away 3/4 of a length, perhaps even more than that now. Cambridge out in front, Matthew Pinsent come in again.
I think it's, again, ominous signs for Oxford. Cambridge have got this long bend to come, probably 6 or 7 minutes of rowing now before Oxford will see any advantage from their bend, which is way, way down the course. But I'm just really impressed by the Cambridge rhythm. They look calm, they look controlled, they look confident. And that's so important for them in these conditions at this stage of the race. They've got this. They've got this. If they want to win this race, it's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 minutes for Cambridge.
The wing beats of the boats you can hear as they carry these boats along, mingling in with the cries of the Coxies, and Cambridge are building that lead, building that advantage. The one unknown factor, though, of course, for both crews is how alive is that river after Hammersmith Bridge, coming down through Chiswick Reach and past Chiswick Gate, because Oxford are hanging on at the moment, but they need, I think they need, if they can't push on themselves, they need, and they might get a little bit of help from the river.
That's right. There could still be an act of God, so to speak, here, even if Cambridge is a length in front. Given what we saw before in the women's race, anything could happen with those waves.
But we saw there that Oxford had to move out, and anytime you apply the rudder just a little bit, it's a bit of a break, a tiny thing, the rudder, but it does just slow the boat. But they have started to put a bit of a push on Oxford as they try and hang on to Cambridge.
Yeah, Oxford are definitely holding on here around this bend. It's a very impressive performance for them. They're gutsy. They look like they are now starting to lengthen out and relax a little bit more, even though they are this nearly a length down. Pretty impressive performance here from Oxford to hold on around this bend.
So past the green wrought iron spires of Hammersmith Bridge they went, and you can see the times there, and that's a pretty impressive time in these conditions, but it is about to get more difficult. And you can see the angles that they have chosen there, and Cambridge just moving across to the Surrey station a little bit, but again the river is about to become far more animated as they round this bend, which of course favours Cambridge.
Oh, if I were in the Cambridge crew, I'd be stepping on the gas hard right now. They had the first part of their bend, and Oxford did not let them get away. And the whole thing about the Surrey bend is with every passing minute that you don't break clear, the Middlesex crew gains an advantage, gains confidence. So Cambridge do not want to let that happen to them.
If the water's anything like it was in the women's race, Oxford will have the worst time of it. I did think that Cambridge were heading over to Surrey to try and get a little bit of extra safety from that water, but they seem to have come back together now.
So Cambridge in a strong position, an unfamiliar position based on recent years, that they have clear water almost now between themselves and Oxford as the flotilla, all the boats behind, churn up the water, which is lively enough. And they sweep around, and Ian Middleton in his third boat race, the youngster still just 20, coxing Cambridge and asking for more, having a look around, just having a look around to see what Oxford are, but the whole crew can see. He's the only man who can't see the advantage they have. Oxford hanging on just about clear water between the boats, but Oxford hanging in, and they have to keep digging and keep driving and try and maintain contact.
You can see those white horses now, and Cambridge have just hit it. Both crews now going into that rougher water, and this is where the challenge will start for them. Can they keep their full length? Can they keep their quality of rowing?
Again, what a different view down there we have, the view that these men have, where the river really is lifting up, and the blades cut through the choppy water, and up goes the spray. And again, a battle of technique here. Who can deal with these conditions the better?
You've got to keep the water out of your boat. If you have a couple big waves come in, that's immediately like having a man on board who's not rowing. 2 men, 3 men on board who's not rowing. It gets very heavy.
Matthew Pinsent as we hit Chiswick Reach, and again things are coming to life, Matthew.
Yeah, as we can all see, there are some really big slabs of water out here on the Thames. And at the moment, I'd say it's still Cambridge's advantage, but there's an interesting dynamic in that their corner is beginning to run out within the next 2 or 3 minutes. Oxford probably have got 2 or 3 minutes to save the race. If they can stay in contact, then of course they get their last bend. But the real test at the moment is against the river. It's not against the opposition. How clean can you be? How smooth can you be? Can you stay on top of the waters of the Thames? That's the real challenge at the moment.
Both crews are battling the angry river today, and Cambridge, as they have that clear water, as Matthew was saying, Oxford have to try and re-establish contact, because otherwise Cambridge can choose their line, so the final bend is not in favour of Oxford. So Oxford, if they re-establish contact, then Cambridge will have to move out.
It is worth pointing out that although some of the Oxford crew haven't raced in the boat race before, a number of them were in the victorious ISIS crew last year, the reserve crew that did actually row through the Cambridge reserves when Cambridge had clear water on them. So they have experienced rowing back through a race that looks like it's done and dusted.
I see the boat rocking from side to side, and this is where Sam Collier, the Oxford Cox, has to not quite lie to his crew, but tell them that they are really still in contact and can still do this.
Yeah, in a rowing race, once you start to fall a bit behind, you lose the ability to see the other crew, to hear the other crew, and it can become very hard to motivate yourself, and you rely on your Cox to tell you really where you are in the race.
Here is Sam Collier, a 20-year-old. And you see the delicate touch he has there on the rudder cables, the wires that control the rudder. Just holding with a feather touch, but so difficult in these conditions.
Really hard to manage the boat well in rough conditions. He's going to have to keep making good decisions.
So Cambridge, clear advantage, clear water, and you look down the boat. The stroke Lance Tredell and Ben Rubel, Henry Hofstock, Luke Juckett, that core of Americans in 7, 6 and 5, then Clement Alsberg and Charles Fisher, Ali Abbasi, Felix Newman. And they are about a length clear now in Oxford, grafting and working to try and maintain contact, but you can see the lead that they have now. And Cambridge in clear control as they pass Chiswick Steps.
Yeah, it'll take a mistake by Cambridge now to lose this lead, but it's still not out of the question because there's another patch of rough water coming. And I don't know if you could see, but the pumps are working hard on both boats. You can see the water spitting out the side of the boat.
You can see the water still in the base of the boat there, but those pumps are working. And you can see the crews are working as well. And how do you maintain your rhythm and remain rowing as one? The Cox asking as one, but how do you do that when conditions are doing their best to disrupt you? Matthew Pinsent again.
You can just see that the challenge of the river that was setting up 3-4 minutes ago, Cambridge have met admirably. They've rowed cleaner, they've rowed smoother over the top of that water. And the real psychological challenge for Oxford now is they know they're behind, they know it's a really testing day on the river, and it just feels heavier, it feels wetter. Every splash, every wave they hit is going to feel as if it's adding more and more to their workload and increase the distance between them and Cambridge that they have to make up.
Both crews are working in a world of noise and effort and spray which is being kicked up, and I wonder if it's worth a desperate gamble by Oxford. But Cambridge anyway are cutting across to the Middlesex station. They're heading closer to the bank there for a bit of shelter.
Yeah, I think both crews learned from maybe what happened in the women's race. They're doing the right thing by seeking the shelter of the Middlesex bank, because if you're out in the worst of it, there's a risk of sinking. Look at that.
Well, this is the boat race at its liveliest best for some who enjoy seeing this challenge, but Oxford are really working hard here. You see every little wave that comes up and the blades cutting into it and kicking up the spray, and it's a thankless task almost now for Oxford, because they're beginning to lose further distance to Cambridge, who creep further clear.
You saw Ian Middleton, the Cambridge Cox, just turn around and look behind him at Oxford's progress there. Did look like Oxford were holding, it looked like they were staying with them, but these last few strokes they've started to slip. I think they needed to tuck in perhaps a little quicker.
Well, the often flat grey-brown waters of the Thames have really come to life today as they pass the Weeping Willows and the bandstand, and heading closer still to victory for Cambridge. They will move beneath the central span. Both crews have to go through the central span of Barnes Railway Bridge, but Cambridge have that distance, which must be 3 or 4 lengths now, and still Sam Collier asks his crew to believe, well, no, just a couple of lengths there, 2.5 perhaps, and still he will say, you can do this. And you know, they're not losing any further contact.
No, they do seem to be holding that distance well. They're looking still reasonably relaxed, actually. Maybe not quite as confident as Cambridge's strokeman Lance Treadle, who's very experienced and quite a sort of calm, steely guy. They are going to have to pop out now through this middle arch, so we'll see how the steering takes them round here.
Well, very few are the crews that come from behind at Barnes Bridge to win it. It's only happened 1949, it happened. Oxford in 1952 did it, and Oxford in 2002, but that was when Cambridge and Sebastian Meyer for them almost collapsed and was like a dead weight. So very, very hard now for Oxford to come from behind. About 1,000 metres to go from Barnes Bridge to the finish.
Looked like a lot of this race was about making sure you were ahead when you got to the rough water, so that you could really pick your line and keep yourself out of the worst of it, and that's paid off for Cambridge.
Yeah, they've held a nice rhythm through all the tough water, and there's a real look of determination on that Cambridge crew. They're not going to let this one get away from them. But a lot of courage in that Oxford crew as well. They have kept that gap to a minimum.
Well, Oxford trying their very best to not lose further contact, but this is going to be victory for Cambridge today to end a long run of Oxford wins. Oxford have won the women's boat race. The reserve boat races have been shared, but Cambridge are going to take the one for these crews that really matters. Matthew Pinsent, what are your thoughts on the closing stages?
Well, I think Oxford are racing for pride now. They know, they must know that the race has slipped away from them. But you've just got to imagine the atmosphere in that Cambridge boat, the pain, the agony of those losses that they've had previously, and it's all coming right. It'll be feeling so light, they'll be feeling warm, they'll be feeling dry, because victory is within their grasp. It's a magical, magical moment coming up for Cambridge.
So there is the Cambridge crew in the bow seat: Felix Newman, Ali Abbasi, Charles Fisher in 3, and Clemens Augsburg, the tall Austrian, Luke Juckett, the returning American, Henry Hofstadt, the president, Ben Rubel, 3 Americans there in 5, 6 and 7, and Lance Treadle, the stroke man, Ian Middleton, driving them on, asking for a final push. But they will know that victory is shortly to be theirs. No thoughts of a quick time today. It doesn't matter. Oxford are hanging in. They haven't gone any further adrift. So the margin of victory will be 3-4 lengths, but Oxford, this will bring to an end a long run of Oxford victory. Just asking for a final minute's push. Even now, as their legs are dying and their backs are breaking and their arms are falling out of their sockets, is keep pushing to the finish. And still they drive on. But Oxford were winners of this race in 2013, 14 and 15. But this year it is going to belong to Cambridge. And for that core of the boat that we talked about, for Ben Rubel, for Henry Hofstadt, for Luke Juckett, for Ian Middleton at Cox, they know the pain of losing, and they'll be making amends for that today. And even the waters seem to have calmed down now as they come round that bend. They've done their work.
Cambridge are really piling on here. They want to win by as much as they possibly can. Look at them go here. They are going to get every inch.
It is Cambridge. It is Cambridge who take it, who win the 162nd boat race. 3 years of dark blue, and it turns now a lighter shade. Oxford, second best today on the Thames. And the bent bodies and dipped heads of beaten men, and the smiles and standing celebration of Luke Juckett. And what it means, as we mentioned, to come back having lost and lost, to come back and win now. What a difference. What a race he had. He's had problems before where he's almost been knocked out of the boat a couple of years ago, and now here he is celebrating as a victor, and all the way down that boat. And then the contrast, the sharp contrast Some men who will come back and try again. Others, this was their one and only chance. And well beaten today by the favoured crew, Cambridge. And then here you have the underneath Chiswick Bridge. Both crews gather, and those sort of echoing cries and cheers from Cambridge will taunt and will haunt in years to come Oxford. But that is what the boat race is like. Cambridge, the winners, and emphatically so.
Yeah, the cliche is there. There's no second place in the boat race, and losing it really hurts, as you can see now from the faces of the Oxford crew. But I think they did a great job there to stay in the race. But Cambridge, worthy victors.
That's very tired and defeated 3 cheers from Nick Hazel and Jamie Cook, Jürgen Tveit, Leo Carrington, Josh Bogajski, Morgan Gerlach, the president, James White and George McCurdy, the Oxford bow seat. But the winners have it all in the boat race. And as a former Cambridge man, Wayne, you'll be delighted, because you know what it is as well. Well, you had your problems in 2003 through injury, but then to come back the next year and win, and especially for those who have lost before, to come back and win.
Oh, yeah. You could just see the look on the face of Henry Hofstad and Luke Juckett, just the catharsis of having been down the course twice before and lost, and now to win in their last year at Cambridge. I mean, it's just an unbelievable feeling.
Well, I think we knew, looking at the races and the way it prepared, and I said a solid core of this boat won the Fours Head of the River as well, and we knew from then in November that Cambridge were going to be a very, very strong crew. And then the contrast again with the losing Cox there, Sam Collier. A little nod of recognition perhaps, but I'm sure he'll be back. But again, this has been a very strong Cambridge crew this year, and Sean Bowden, the Oxford coach, knew that he had quite a lot to do. It's a very short period of time you have to fashion a crew, especially when you don't have many returning Blues.
Yeah, and I think, you know, credit to Sean as well. Even in the years when he doesn't have the best athletes, he produces quite a good crew. And this was not a huge margin of victory. I mean, I think both crews can be proud of what they did today, especially given the conditions.
And a word as well for Steve Trapmore, the Cambridge coach, because there was that victory in 2012, but there were lots of other factors that year as well. And I think a lot of people thought that was a bit of a hollow victory, but this has been a well-earned victory for Steve Trapmore, who came in 2011, was a great oarsman himself, had success with Imperial College, but now to win here, a really clean, solid win for Cambridge, and that's what it means. And there will be delight for Steve Trapmore, the Cambridge coach, and the work he's done.
Yeah, there's been a lot of going back to the drawing board, I think, at Cambridge after the losses of the last few years. They really started the beginning of this season saying, we're going to get it right, we're going to win. And at each milestone during the year, I think they were where they wanted to be. They at the Fours Head and during the fixtures with the Ergo scores. It was a good season for them from start to finish, and they can be happy with that.
Well, let's have a look at some of the moments in the race. It wasn't a race of really clearly defined moments where things happened, and it was obvious to see that that's where the race was won. But from the start, it was a pretty solid start from both crews, but Cambridge just edged ahead in the early stage and really never relinquished it from then on.
No, Cambridge just started to inch away really round this early part of the race. They then sat at this distance, as you see here, about a length up for a good proportion of the race. And it wasn't really until they started to hit the rough water, which we're just coming up into now, that they really got away from Oxford.
It was interesting, the choice today of the Surrey station, I think perhaps did favour the crews, but Cambridge, a stronger crew in any case. Anything could have happened in this water, but both crews seemed to deal with it pretty much the same. There wasn't a huge advantage gained by either crew.
Now, there's danger in these conditions that one crew nearly sinks, which is what we saw in the women's race, and is why Cambridge lost by such a huge margin. But in the men's race, both managed to get through the water in one piece and have it be sort of a normal winning margin for Cambridge.
Well, what a fascinating day of races it has been, and the Cambridge crew said they have not experienced this for 4 years, coming into land at the Mortlake Anglian and Alpha Boat Club as a winning crew in the men's boat race, but they have that now. And again, it will mean a huge amount, not just for the likes of Felix Newman, Ali Abbasi, Charles Fisher, Clemens Auersberg, but for Juckett and Hofstad and Rubel, who know what it is to lose. And to come back now and win. There's Henry Hofstad, the winning president. And an embrace with Luke Juckett in his third boat race. an embrace with the reserve crews. And just a reminder that Cambridge women won the reserves race after Oxford had taken the women's boat race, and Oxford men won the reserve race.
Yeah, actually unusual to have that reverse in the decisions in the reserve races. Quite often you get the stronger squad and they will win both races. And that, we should be pointing out, 6 in a row for ISIS.
Well, I can see Henry Hofstadt getting in position to talk to Claire, so let's hear from him now.
There is jubilation for Cambridge because so many of them, including their president Henry Hofstadt, have been in this boat race before. They have lost it before. Third time lucky, well done.
I'm at an absolute loss for words. After losing twice, coming out here and winning is a feeling like nothing I've ever experienced before. I'm truly humbled. It's a lot of hard work that goes into this. It's 9 months and we wanted it more today. All the guys did a great job. Steve did a great job. There's so many friends and family. I'd like to thank the university, Hughes Hall, and it's just a spectacular day for the Light Blues.
It was a fantastic success for you. Great negotiating the course as well. We'll talk to Ian Middleton in a moment. But Luke Jackett, we saw the most amazing celebrations from Luke, who was pumping the air as he came over. But quick chat with Ian Middleton. Well driven, as they say, but well negotiated. That course was tough today.
Yeah, it was definitely tough conditions. Steve and I went out over the course yesterday, about this time when the conditions were very similar. We knew what it would be like, and we knew it would be a tough second half, and we had to set it up in the first half. And yeah, credit to the guys, they dealt with it really well and responded to what I asked them when we turned into that. So, yeah.
And you put on a final push, or they did, to really pull away from Oxford.
Yeah, Lance in the stern was talking to me the entire time, letting me know what Oxford are doing. He's saying, they're going, they're sprinting, we've got to go as well. And so, yeah, we had no option. They drove us to the line there. And yeah, wanted to open up as much as we could and take some lengths back that we lost the last few years.
Now, tradition demands that you are going to be thrown into that water. It doesn't look very inviting.
I'm already soaked, so it doesn't matter. And anything now, like, it's fine.
We'll try and grab Ben and Luke for you. Great, Lance, well done. You were pointing at Ian at the end there, saying, down to you, well done.
Yeah, he led us really well today, as he has done throughout the whole season. You know, I haven't lost the race on the Tideway this year with Ian coxing me every time, no matter what the situation. He's led us well and we've responded, and, you know, we've got what we deserved today.
And for a lot of them in that crew, it really was a matter of redemption.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, there's guys in there coming off the back of 2 defeats in their final year, so I know how much it meant to them, and they were really desperate for the win, and I'm just really glad I could be a part of that today.
Can I just ask you, how much does it hurt in the middle of that when it's so rough and choppy?
Yeah, the conditions got really crazy. It's just a case of managing the conditions. Often when the conditions are that bad, it's not as easy to work, actually, and it's a case of trying to find, you know, keep the work on during those rough conditions, and then, yeah, just managing it better than the other crew.
You did a great job. Many, many congratulations. And let's just grab the other 2 Americans, Luke and Ben, because we saw Luke celebrating emphatically. In fact, if you guys just wait a second, we'll just hear from Oxford from the losers first.
I'm standing here with the losing Oxford president, Morgan Gerlach, and I know from personal experience this is not a great moment for you. Where do you think the race turned against Oxford?
Probably coming under Hammersmith. Cambridge did a really good job getting ahead on the Surrey Bend, and you know, credit to them. They handled the conditions and, you know, deserved to win the race.
It was probably a difficult decision a difficult situation for the boat club. The results in the winter perhaps hadn't gone against you in experience terms. Perhaps the Dark Blues were less capable than Cambridge. Do you think that's a fair assumption? I think that's a fair conclusion?
No, I think we're part of the best boat club in the world, and we'll be back next year. We have the best coaches, best athletes, and we'll be back.
Does this feel, well, obviously from that previous answer this is a no, but does this feel like the end of an era for Oxford?
Absolutely not. Thank you.
Fighting talk from Oxford. They will be determined to move on from this. But Luke Jackett and Ben Rubel with me now. Wow, it's been a long time coming, but Ben, how sweet does victory feel?
It's pretty amazing. Still hasn't quite hit me. I think when we were coming through Barnes, I finally started thinking, you know, this is really going to happen. Just put my head down and tried to make it to the finish line.
Luke, you had enough energy there to almost dance your way over the winning line. How did you have anything left?
Adrenaline. 3 years of build-up. Really got me out of my seat, up and out of my seat, ready to roll. Yeah.
We can show it to you actually, because I have no idea what you were shouting, and you probably shouldn't repeat it. But it was fairly impressive moves that.
Yeah, I was just saying this is Cambridge. Really loud. It was a long time coming. Coach put together an amazing plan for the year, and we all bought in. And it was a collective effort all the way through, and reaping the benefits now.
It's actually, speaking to all of you, you've all mentioned Steve Trapmore, because this is hugely important for him.
I mean, I guess, he wants to win just as much as we do, which is amazing to have as a coach. Truly, this is his passion, and, we all sat down around Steve and told him how much we really appreciate what he did this year. And at the beginning of the race, we all said we need to do it for Steve, because we think he's a great coach. He really builds a team, builds a boat, and I think he's finally going to get the credit that he deserves.
You have done it for him, you've done it for each other, you've done it for yourselves as well. Let's get more reaction from Oxford with Matt.
So I'm standing with the dark blue coxswain, Sam Collier. Do you think that was a fair reflection on Oxford, that result?
Well, I mean, we really wanted that one to be our race. I don't know, we threw everything we had at it, and in the end, the conditions played a part. It was a tough one.
How much about those conditions did you know as you went onto the state boats?
Yeah, our preparations were very thorough. We knew it was going to be something similar to that, really strong winds in those sorts of areas, and we had some plans to try and deal with it that clearly were not effective enough.
And just say a little bit about the qualities of the Oxford squad that you've trained with.
I can't commend these guys highly enough. Really, it's an incredible team, an incredible setup here. Morgan wasn't wrong just saying this is the best boat club in the world, and there's just no question about that.
Thank you for stopping.
So there we are again. We highlight the contrast on a day of contrasting weather, sunshine and storms as well. And for Cambridge, absolutely everything. This is Cambridge, said Luke Juckett. Worst that effect. He seems reasonably excited at having won, as he would be. Just ends that spell. It's not really a sort of era of dominance, but 3 wins in a row for Oxford, and finished now by these men who controlled it pretty nearly from the start. I'd quite be interested to hear, and I say it with a sense of trepidation, let's hear from Helen and Sean again.
Well, I think our eardrums just about burst. There was a lady who squealed so loudly for Cambridge when we were stood here a few moments ago. She was absolutely ecstatic, Sean.
Yeah, she's gone. I could do it for you if you want.
Cambridge! It was very similar to that. That was our lovely Daisy, wherever she's gone. Ladies, was that the race you expected? Did it live up to the hype that we've been building up to?
Yeah, because it was so close, all the way through. With the women's race, they were quite far apart, but those were so close. It was tense till the end.
It was dramatic enough for you?
Yeah, it was.
Now I'm trying to work out who you are supporting, because you've got an array of colours on here. Talk us through Cambridge or Cambridge or Oxford. Which one were you backing?
Well, I actually support both because I went to both universities, so it's been really mixed feelings going through the race. I feel really bad for the Cambridge women, and I'm very happy that the Cambridge men have won. So I think in all cases, I think it's been a really, really good turnout for me anyway.
You're friends with the Cambridge ladies Cox, aren't you? So tell her congratulations from us, a heroic effort from all involved, Claire, and plenty to celebrate down here.
Cambridge. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time now for the presentation for the Cancer Research UK boat race for 2016, after the toughest, nastiest, choppiest conditions for many a while. On the presentation podium here, I'm joined by Sir Harpal Kumar, the CEO of Cancer Research UK, Helen Glover, Olympic champion, part of Team GB, David Searle, the Executive Director of the Boat Race Company Limited, Mitchell Harris, the CEO of Investment Management for BNY Mellon, and Heather Stanning, Olympic champion. Please, first, your appreciation for the effort and the commitment of Oxford as they make their way to the stage. Morgan Gerlach, their president, leading them off the stage. A tough afternoon, a tough day. But as they said in their interviews afterwards, determined to come back. For the first time since 2012, the boat race winners are Cambridge. Felix Newman leading the way up here. You will get your moment to lift that trophy. For some, it has been a long time coming, including the president, Henry Hofstad, his third boat race. And with Luke Juckett and fellow American Ben Rubel, they were determined that this would be a winning race. They have come out on top. And a big mention for Ian Middleton, their cox, who's here in front of me. How well steered through those choppy waters. And Steve Trapmore, their coach. Steve, a quick word with you, because everybody I interviewed of your crew were desperate to say how much they wanted to do this for you, how much they respect you, and how much this will mean to you.
Well, I've got to say I'm really proud right now. I mean, it was the guys that were out there doing it, and you know, we just tried to set them up all year round, give them a bit of confidence, and I think it was just epic.
Have you ever felt prouder?
No. It's hard to put into words, really. Yeah.
The emotion, you can hear it in his voice, you can see it in his eyes as well. One final word from the president, from Henry. Would you like to say anything to the assembled masses?
Thank you, everyone, for the support today. It means more than I can possibly express to all 9 of us, all 10 of us, Steve included. So thank you, and go Cambridge.
The winners of the Cancer Research UK Boat Race, Cambridge!
They're fierce and wild celebrations, and well-deserved celebrations for Cambridge and the champagne spray. Not the first spray they've had to deal with today. A fascinating day on the river, where Cambridge in the men's race have beaten Oxford and beaten the conditions, because as lively as it has been for many years out on the Thames, and again some experiencing this race itself for the first time, in Felix Newman, Ali Abbasi, Charles Fisher and the Austrian Clemens Auersberg. But then there's Luke Juckett and Henry Hofstad, the president, who quite often says he's lost for words and then proceeds to show that he isn't. But Henry Hofstad, the president, on his third boat race. Finally a winner, Ben Rubel as well, coming back. Lance Trudell, the strokeman, and Ian Middleton. And all the celebrations are there. And it was Wayne Proman and Zoe de Toledo still alongside. It was a very almost uncontrollable conditions. It was quite a controlled race from these men.
It was. They were very disciplined all the way down the course. They kept their length, they kept their rhythm, even when the conditions were awful. And they did a great job to make it through that and come out on top.
I totally agree. I think they were very relaxed in both crews, actually, and really held it together well. Just looking there at that shot from above, it looks like perhaps the Oxford women's cox, Morgan Bain and Williams, might be about to go into the water there.
Right, we'll not want to miss that. I think they're planning to throw the 2 victorious coxes in at the same time, which would mean, of course, one from Oxford and one from Cambridge, but I wonder if they'll do it separately. But these are the now traditional celebrations, and a more established tradition is this. Morgan Bain and Williams is getting ready to be hurled. She'll probably change direction at the last moment and go somewhere else, but she's getting ready. But Cambridge are going to do the men's at the same time. So here we have Ian Middleton, who in his third boat race has not experienced this, and Morgan Bain and Williams in her first. And into the Thames they will go. The winners of the women's boat race, Oxford, and the men's, Cambridge. Synchronized diving into the Thames. Well, there we are, Cambridge and Oxford together. Isn't that a nice way to finish it? And as Ian Middleton said, he was wetting up already after a hard day out on the river. That was rather ungainly. Ian Middleton got some good height there. more a sort of skimming stone from Morgan Bain and Williams. But any other time that would be deeply unpleasant, but I think any Cox would like to go through that, the celebration of being hurled into the Thames after winning. And for Cambridge today, it is victory in the men's race, Oxford in the women's, and what a day it has been on the river. The sun is out now, but we've had a little bit of everything, and all the champagne for Cambridge. Zoe, your final thoughts?
I thought great racing from all of the crews, really well held together in those rough conditions that no one wants to go out rowing in, frankly. So really well done from everyone.
And Wayne, something that you've experienced as part of a Cambridge crew back in 2004, it means the world.
Yeah, and the question really is what happens now. So Cambridge will be determined to show they have their system right, and Oxford want to show that it was a one-off.
Congratulations to Oxford in the women's boat race, to Cambridge in the men's, and still down there amongst it all is Claire.
Well, of course, we have the whole afternoon of racing to reflect on, and looking back to the win of the Oxford win in the women's race. Christine Wilson, the coach, with me now. That's 4 out of 4 for you, 100%.
Yes, it is. We're so fortunate to coach remarkable women, and you know, we had a little bit of a theme, which was whatever came today, they would be perfect boat race conditions. But I'm not sure we expected something quite so perfect. I mean, they were extraordinarily tough conditions, and I'm not quite sure what it looked like on the television, but I mean, they were rowing through the Pacific Ocean at times.
That is what it looked like, believe me. And there were times when Morgan was steering the course she was, that I think the commentary team and everybody watching were thinking, halo, what's she doing?
Well, Matt Pinsent was with me in the following launch, and he kept telling me that it was okay. And I was wondering if he was right, because, you know, she cut across out of her station to one side of the river and then came back across. But when she got over there and we could see the water she was in, it was a brilliant decision and really brave, you know, to make in the moment. She said internally she was thinking to herself, Christine's gonna kill me. But she instinctively knew that she needed to get her crew to better water, so she did the right thing for them.
She did the right thing for them, and they did the right thing in battling on through it, because my word, they were good, they were committed. All that training you've done with them, all of the work that you've done in getting the technique right, and for them to stay calm within the moment and almost to not think of it as a race against another crew, but to think about it as a competition with themselves to be the best they can be.
Yes, I mean, they certainly are very, very focused on figuring out how to move the boat, you know, and if it's lousy conditions, someone has to do a better job of plowing through that stuff. And so I think that their connected length and their sense of the boat just kept them at it one stroke at a time.
And for you, as personal achievements go, where does this rank?
I'm really proud of these women. I think that, you know, the conditions didn't necessarily let them show how good their rhythm at base speed was, but I think that they're an extraordinary crew, and I think that they've gotten so much out of themselves this year to really exceed all of our expectations. Yeah.
They did a great job. Congratulations to you. Enjoy tonight.
Thank you, Claire.
All right, thanks to Christine. Her work on next year will probably start immediately. Catherine Granger, Kath Bishop, George Nash, Constantine Aloudis, all with me here as the tide starts to come in and lap over your feet. Guys, take a step this way. I don't want you to ruin your shoes. Catherine, as days go, as boat race days go, that was one of the more memorable. Quite extraordinary.
I think dramatic. Sums up everything. Yeah, I mean, we all want good races. We want close races. We want races that people have to fight for. And that today had it all, and more. We didn't think the weather would play such a huge role in it. But I think both the main blue boats as well, both the men's and the women's, was tight, it was competitive. And I think, although we're talking a lot about Cambridge just surviving in the women's race to the end, I think they played a fantastic first third. They were very tactically smart and never gave up, even when they were sinking.
It was amazing, that, and incredible looking back at it now, that they did actually manage to finish, because that boat looked like it was going nowhere but down, Kath, and that would have been a terrible end.
They were never going to stop. I mean,
the amount of training they've done, they are ready for anything. And we know this race can just throw it at the crews. The weather, the timing of being in March means it's tough out there. And of course, they were never going to stop. They could see they were attacking it all the way through the race, and the conditions were going to be tough for both crews. And there were moments where they managed to kind of regain some, come back at Oxford a bit, and they were ready to see if there was an opportunity.
But there is work to do for Cambridge women. For Cambridge men, George, delight, because that is sort of necessary in terms of the competitiveness of the race. It needed a Cambridge win.
Absolutely. They've gone 3 years without a win, so it is fantastic for them. I am over the moon for them. I can't express enough how much they needed it and how much they deserved it, frankly. They've had a great year. Loads of things have gone right for them. They put loads of great training in place. And on the day, I thought they were incredibly clinical. They stayed really relaxed, really composed at the start of the race. And even though the conditions were horrific, I don't think they actually affected the men's race as much as the women's race. And I think that's just a testament to how well they prepared and how well they executed today. It was great, absolutely great.
And Constantine, we heard there in the immediate aftermath from the Oxford crew, they will fight back.
Oh, I'm sure. They've still got the system in place. They've got a lot of younger talent coming up through the ranks. They're going to be, right back at it next year. And I totally agree with George. Without my Oxford hat on, for the event, it's good to mix it up. It's great to have competitive races. It's great to have it going either way. And if that means the old Cambridge win, then I suppose we'll just have to be done with it.
That's very gracious of you. You guys go back into camp. They will be part of the GB team for Rio. Announcements to be made very soon. Catherine Granger alongside me. Those announcements in 2 weeks' time, is it?
Yeah, we've got, I think about the 9th of May, we make the decisions on the European Championships, which is the first international race you'll see the British team competing. And then we've got 2 more World Cups after that. We may or may not change the boats before Rio, and that'll be the deciding factor. And then about June we'll know for definite.
Yes, hopefully you'll have smoother waters than this.
I hope so.
Exactly. It has been the most amazing day. It started with a lightning strike and a tree just along the riverbank from us here bursting into flames. We had hailstorms, we had rainstorms, we had the choppiest waters we have seen for ages, which meant that Cambridge very nearly sank in the women's race. They made it to the end. Oxford victorious in that. In the Cancer Research UK boat race, eventually a win for the Cambridge men. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Each year is different.
It really is a challenge like no other.
We go out there and we race because we love racing.
This is our year, this is our story.
It's just an amazing thing to have the opportunity to do.
It is the boat race, and that's the only race that matters.
Attention, go! Keep going, guys! It is absolutely brutal down here.
In the shadows of Barnesbridge, Cambridge are sinking. Oxford are going to win, and by a handsome margin as well. It's the 162nd boat race is underway.
Cambridge look very smooth and very confident at this stage.
3 years of dark blue, and it turns now a lighter shade.
We got murdered. Colder than I have ever got. We were here going, who's in charge? You can't take a picture of my shoulder. Yeah, I was there.
there trying to get a picture balance on the sea hab, so I was shivering. She was shivering.
We're just about to take the rest of you all